Real quick, Athena, can you hear us down here?
Yes, Damon.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom.
Hello there.
So I think we're going to get started because it's only 2:30. Is there anyone else up there with you, Tom, besides Athena?
Oh, no, just us. And then, Dennis is here.
Sorry about that.
Oh, hi.
Sorry about that.
We've got a couple people in the audience, just FYI, but all the press has gone home.
Okay.
So that's what I wanted to know. I don't know. So we'll call this meeting to order. This is the Consumer Assistance Advisory Committee meeting for the Silver State Health Insurance Exchange. This meeting has been properly noticed. We are starting late at 2:35 due to the board meeting prior to us running late, and a little bit of lunch for a few of us. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. All of our committee members. And why don't we take a roll call? Should I do that? Okay, good. Oh, I know. It's here somewhere, though, isn't it?
All right, I'll take the roll. Mr. Randall Downey.
He's not on this
He's
committee.
not on this committee. You're right. I don't know why he's on here. Ms. Tibby Ellis.
Here.
Ms. Amber Joyner.
Here.
Mr. Dwight Mazzoni. Mr. Thomas McCoy.
Here.
Miss Gina, and I don't want to butcher your last name, so please forgive me. Parati. Vice Chair Levon Lewis.
She's not here.
And Chair Atkins.
Present.
And of course, we have our Deputy Attorney General, Dennis Belcourt.
Thank you. And Mr. Haycock, thank you for staffing the meeting. We appreciate it. And we know a lot of this information you guys have been pulling together very quickly with everything that's going on. So thank you both to you and staff everywhere. We all want you to know that we understand you guys are working on all cylinders, and we really, really appreciate it. Before we go to public comment, I think after relooking at the agenda and after a suggestion from one of our committee members, we think item 3 should probably go to the end since it's a discussion regarding the Navigator program in general, and I think all of the items kind of are going to lead up to that maybe, so I think that makes sense for us to talk about that at the end. So if we can move agenda item 3 to the end. And if there's no other announcements, is there any public comment in Las Vegas? No? Any public comment in Carson City?
There was none.
Look, we're done with 2 items so far. We're on a roll. Okay, so with that, we'll go to item 4, possible action regarding reaching out to individuals who have received an eligibility determination but have not finalized enrollment in a QHP. And I believe that is Xerox?
This is Damon Haycock for the record. If you could please speak directly into these microphones. They are not as touchy as we'd hope they would be. So as committee members and those that come up to testify, please basically chew the mic. Thank you.
So I'd ask you to turn to page 8. And in page 8, just quickly for those members who weren't in the prior meeting, just to quickly go through this slide. And can everyone hear me in Carson, I hope? So just as we read across from left to right, these are individuals, there are 397,000 individuals who came to the Nevada Health Link website and indicated their first initial attempt and interest in the program and trying to gain access to coverage. Of those, 290,000 individuals had started an application. Of those, 102,000 actually went through the process of completing an application, but did not finish by signing the application by hitting the sign and submit button in our portal. 53,000 actually went through the entire process, and they actually indicated their intent to run through the eligibility determination process. At this point, we have 19,320 individuals who have actually paid and are on with the carriers and receiving insurance. And also, at this point, we have transmitted over 100,000 applications to DWSS for those individuals who came through our portal, and it appears that they are potentially Medicaid eligible and have transferred them over to go through the remaining eligibility process with Medicaid. So what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes just talking about the various campaigns that we are working through. Give me 1 second. So as we begin to reach out to individuals, we have started 2 campaigns. One kicked off last Sunday, and it was to go after 13,000 individuals who had completed the application process and or at the point where they had selected a plan, health plan, but had not yet paid. So we sent out letters to those individuals in order to invite them back in, hopefully get them to make a payment, and hopefully be able to get them through in order to increase the overall enrollment, because from our standpoint, that should be the easiest population to go after, because they've gotten through all of the issues within the system, and that's the last part to help them get on. So that's where our focus is this week. In addition to sending out the letter for folks that we had email addresses, we've also reached out via email and are also trying where possible to make outbound phone calls to these individuals. In addition to that, we have several other campaigns going after the 53,000 individuals who have signed and submitted the application and may not have completed the process. Again, we are using various campaigns of outreach letters as well as email addresses for those that we have email addresses on file. We are working with
Where are you capturing?
the email addresses are captured in the web portal and are part.
We do not put email addresses in the web portal as brokers. We bring people in the program because it doesn't work, and it puts us into a loop. Why sit with me, coffee shop.
Excuse me, we can't hear the speaker. Can he use a mic, please?
Sorry.
I
usually am told to shut up.
No. So yeah, so
The
Mr.
problem-
Mazzoni, it's Dwight Mazzoni for the record.
Dwight Mazzoni for the record. Sorry, Madam Chair. Problem is that at least in all the training we've been told not to use the client's email address in the web portal that we access, not my web portal, but I create one for the client. Not to use the email address, because if I'm enrolling her and I put her email address and she doesn't have her access to her email, then it won't do any good, because there's supposedly a code or something that comes back to them. That's what we've been told. Is that still the case?
So, for the record, this is Greg Vidiello again, Mr. Mazzoni, and hopefully I'm saying it correctly. And we are actually able to capture an email address, especially as we're entering somebody in from an individual level. What I'd be happy to do is have someone from our technical team or our customer service team sit with you immediately following this meeting. We have folks here to try to help you through that process and just make sure that that there's nothing else that you can do differently or we can have done differently for those. But we are capturing.
We were all, navigators, producers, we were all told not to use email addresses when we went to that first or second page.
So honestly, I'll have to get back to you. I'm not as familiar with every step within the system of how to work through the application process. So
I'm concerned because of the number of people. I've been doing this since it opened. I've done a large number of Medicaids, a large number of fully insureds. And I can tell you for sure there's not one application that I have put in through the system that I put the client's email address in. And I don't know exactly how many I have. 30 of each, probably, maybe more. So I know you're missing, I don't think your figures are going to be right if you're counting on email addresses, because I don't know where you're capturing them from, unless someone's calling in and doing it, and your people in the call center are capturing it that way.
Ms. Ellis? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ellis.
TV Ellis for the record. I am a navigator. I led a navigator organization, and we have met over 24% of our quota so far, in spite of the technical challenges. But we were instructed at the beginning of the process, due to technical problems entering email address for enrollees, not to enter enrollees. And we have enrolled over 2,500 individuals. So I raised the same concern. Those are confirmed enrollments, not to say those are falling into this campaign targeting populations. So I share Mr. Mazzoni's concern about we cannot rely entirely on email, because email is not a thing that we use to enroll. And we are actively enrolling both the navigators, enrollment assisters, CACs, and brokers using the same procedures and protocol, because we get instructions directly from the Nevada Health Link as a consequence of the technical issues that we experience. This only speaks perhaps to the fact that you don't really have around this if you don't know that we don't enter email addresses. And another comment that I wanted to make is, of those 13,000, are they correctly qualified? Because there was a problem with eligibility at some point. So how do you know that they are correctly qualified, those people that have not paid? Because once they get into the selection of the plan, if it was too expensive, we have people that got off from the table and walked away because they were not correctly qualified at the time. So there is much more to think about than just
We like touch points. However, we have limited staff, about 250, working both inventory and calls. So we're trying to balance the approach of outreaches based on, the four possibilities that I gave you.
Could you define inventories, please?
Inventory are items such as communication or correspondence coming in from a member or an application, a paper applications that being mailed to our processing center. Those are examples, and it's more than that, sir. I did have one other. Another thing I did want to go through. Oh, on the touch points on the payments. We did have we tried an outreach either by mail or by phone. And so the last possibility of these 13,000 members that had multiple touch points or outreaches, this was the last letter campaign that we put towards these individuals. So they have had multiple touch points or multiple outreaches to them to try to get them to pay for the benefits.
Ms. Joyner, oh, go ahead if you want to answer. No, because I think most everyone except Ms. Pratty-Boothman heard the presentation, so I think they have lots of questions. So if you want to answer, did you want to say something, and then we'll have Ms. Joyner ask a question? Okay.
I just wanted to make one other point regarding Ms. Ellis's comment. I realize that there may not actually be 13,000 people who are going to sign up, but based on the information that we have right now, and that these people are in the system, and that they show that they've made a selection and they haven't made a payment, we are, we are trying to go after those folks to see if we can encourage them to make the payment if they're still interested. They may tell us in the end they're not. They may say it's too expensive, but better that we know that we are no longer tracking them than at that point, but we are trying to get to a resolution to clear out all these places where people are and where they are sitting, make sure we're to a true number.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I was going to ask procedurally if you wanted us to go ahead and jump in as we go along, or if you'd rather we hold questions. Or...
I think at this point we're a jump on in.
Okay. Well, I didn't jump on in when we were on page 8, so that's why I was sort of waiting, but I'd like to go back to page 8 because I think it relates to this. On the data question, when you're using the term individual on that very first square, you say there are 397,000 individuals. And again, on this issue of 13,000 individuals, my concern is...
Can you speak up a bit, please?
Is that the number of people who tried to enroll with an email address? Because I'll tell you, I know personally, I used 3 of mine before I even got to a screen that I could use. And so that is a data problem if you're using the number of people, or did you identify them by social security number and you know that they're a single person?
So we're not identifying people by email address, and I'm sorry if somehow in my...
But that's setting up an account, I guess.
Well, it's setting up an account, but these are people who exist in our system and are in this status. The whole purpose around the email address strictly was to talk about where we have an email address, and it's one of the ways that we're trying to outreach people to try to get in touch with them.
I'm sorry, I'm not being clear on my question. Because I had to use 3 different addresses, do I have 3 accounts in your system? Am I 3 of these 397 people? Do you see what I'm saying? Because I had to apply 3 different times.
Yes. So the answer to that is possibly yes, that there are duplicates in there, and I'm not sure if you were in the earlier meeting, but during that period of time, what we were doing when we're actually sending out the outreach, either emails or letters, we are at that point trying to unduplicate that account, those accounts.
And so when you use the term individual in this box, that is different, it sounds like, than the term individual when you say 13,000 individuals. The ones that you're targeting, is that including family members, or is it just the head of household that's enrolled with an account?
This is head of household. This is Kurtzenbach, but it's head of household.
Mr. McCool, I don't want to forget you up there, so whenever you want to either just jump in or...
Yeah, no, we've been holding down the table here. This is just a very simple question, and this kind of follows up to what I was hearing during the board meeting as well. We've identified certain groups of people. I look at the numbers, for example, applications completed and not signed, pretty significant number, and as we heard during the board meeting, it may well be some duplications involved. But I'm thinking about my experience, and I'm sure some people in the audience and perhaps on the committee as well. If I go online and take a look at a pair of shoes at Amazon, they keep on me. I mean, they're checking back with me saying, "Hey, what about this? Are you going to buy these or not?" And I don't understand why the process has not been utilized when we're selling a product just like a pair of shoes. We're selling insurance. How come we didn't have that kind of follow through that so many of the online marketers use and have been using for years?
This is Greg Vitiello for the record again, and I actually agree with your comment, and that, right now we know the system has been, we're very focused on just trying to get the basics working appropriately. We've been working with the exchange and beginning to have conversations about once it is stabilized and once we're at a point where more people are able to move through the system, it's looking at those things like an Amazon does to make sure that we stay on people and we treat it as a product that, if people come in, that we help them and keep reminding them until they get to the point where they make a decision that they want to sign up or they're no longer interested for whatever reason. So I absolutely agree with you, and I believe, as we have the chance and we continue to improve, that's one of the areas and things that we need to be looking at. And I hope in this board, these are the areas we'll discuss how to move forward.
Ms. Parati-Boothman?
Thank you. The questions that I have, and thank you, Amber, Gina Parati-Boothman, for the record, for going back to page 8, because I actually had a couple of questions that aren't quite as relative to the numbers. However, when I look at the 2 middle boxes as far as individuals who started applications and applications that were completed and not signed, and I look to evaluate and assess appropriate outreach activities, as you're going to further define here, were any studies and or evaluations done and or provided or outreach to ask or query as to exactly why they started the app and didn't finish it, or why they completed the app and didn't sign it?
To this date, no.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I should have said this at the beginning, because I know you two folks from Xerox are newer to the process and haven't been here. And just to put this committee in context, I think just so you know where we're coming from, this committee was set up to really look at all of the consumer assistance experience and to make sure that that we were focusing on the consumers. They were going to have a good experience. It was going to be transparent. It was going to be easy, and we were going to let people get as many people to sign up as we can. That's just very broadly what our charge was. We spent, I think I want to say about 2 years. It might have been a little less than 2 years, but virtually every red flag that we brought up happened. And at every subcommittee, and then all of our meetings we brought to the board meeting, I made a board report based on virtually everything this committee said, which was a heads up. Is there enough capacity? Is there enough time? Is the call center open long enough? Are there enough call center people? Is the website going to, virtually everything that has gone wrong, all of us brought to the folks at Xerox 2 years ago, a year ago, however the process was, because none of it sounded right to us. And none of us being experts in that field were constantly told that Xerox had it under control, you guys were the experts, and don't you worry about it. So there is serious, probably more frustration from this committee than any other committee, because we're kind of like, we've been saying this for so long. So I just wanted to put in context where we're coming from. We have the brokers and the agents, on this committee. We spent hours listening to brokers, very skeptical of this entire process and really trying to get everybody on board. And so we are all coming from this from we told you, we knew, it just didn't sound right. And so I just wanted to put that in context.
And Vice Chair Atkins, I appreciate that understanding and that level setting. And, I think the first time you and I may have met was back at the December board meeting, and you indicated during that meeting about a lack of a sense of urgency, and that stuck with me that day. And since that day, we have been working internally, and I've kind of taken up the reins to try to push through and make sure that we're getting the right level of staffing and doing the right things. I can't correct everything that happened in the past, but I can only promise you, as I know David and others who have stood up here before, that I will do everything possible, including and here with Kristen and Bill, who's up in Carson today, to try to correct the situation, make it right going forward. And I just ask and hope that you will give us the opportunity to do so. I have been with Xerox for a very long time. I've spent 14 years with dealing with CHIP eligibility and Medicaid eligibility, and I certainly understand the importance of it. I will continue to do everything possible to try to make it right.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mazzoni?
Dwight Mazzoni for the record. I appreciate your comments. I'm a broker. She's not. She's a navigator, CAC, whatever, all the 3 or 4 initials that she gets to use. She's a nurse. She's in medical stuff. Amber's an agent. And Tom, I'm never quite sure what he does, but he does a lot. He's a hell of a good guy. He's a good guy, Tom. That's you. Can he even hear me? He's a good advocate. I would suggest, I think one of your solutions right now, you come sit with me in 2 or 3 appointments. You go sit with 2 or 3 of her navigators or CACs. You take the people that are sitting here, you come and sit with us and watch what we do and how we do it and how we interact with people. I can tell you, sir, I was ready to stand up and tell you were lying during the meeting because, quite honestly, yesterday I did an enrollment. The system doesn't work, and I ended up calling. And one good thing is, instead of a 2-hour and 40-minute wait that I've had before in your call center, it's much less now. It's not quite 2 hours. And I actually was on hold for over 2 hours and 40 minutes, made another phone call on another phone into the call center, waited 30 minutes to get someone on the phone to say, I'm on call for 2 hours and now 40 minutes. I need to talk to somebody. And they said, we'll take your name and number, and Bill Robertson will call you by 3 o'clock today. That was a Saturday, and I think it was about 5 weeks ago. Okay, so I don't even know who he is. I've never met the man, don't know him, but he was supposedly a supervisor in the call center at one point. And I'm not trying to get his job. I don't care. That's not the point. Just the name was thrown out, and I remembered it because I know several of them. But I think while I commend you for this, that's good. And as Timmy said, good statistical stuff. Yeah, okay, that's great. Maybe that's where Xerox is. That's not the real world. The real world is out where she sits down with a Hispanic-speaking person, or I sit down with an Arabic-speaking person, someone who speaks Farsi, Chinese, and I'm working through the spouse, I'm working through a child or somebody to try and get the information and get it into the system and make the system work. Whether they're going to buy a policy, whether they're going to go Medicaid, most of us don't care. We're just trying to do the best thing we can for the citizens of the state. If you want to solve the problem of these people that you're showing on slide 8 or whatever it is, come and sit with us in the field. Put on your blue jeans and your dirty shirt and come on out there and sit, although we don't do that, but some of us do. Come out and sit with us and watch what we do. At one point in time, I started one appointment early on in the system, 11:15 in the morning. At 3 o'clock, my iPad ran out of juice. I had to terminate, and it was a Medicaid appointment. Do you know exactly how much money I get paid for doing Medicaid as a broker, an agent? 0. Okay, but it's part of what, I bought into this thing. I'm part of what this is about, so I feel it's my obligation to understand it all, including Medicaid and including the insured side. So it doesn't really matter. I don't say that to complain. I want you to be aware that our frustration level is very, very high. And it's very high because I really don't believe it. I've worked with actually one of them sitting right back there, Aaron Johnson, for the last couple of weeks. I was one of the guys that sat down with the programmers from Choice Administrators and walked through some of the problem areas we have. And that seems to help a little bit. And I will tell you that if I go back to when we first started to today, it's easier. There's been a lot of positive changes, but it's still not to the point where I feel comfortable. Then the other thing, I dare say that, where is it? The one about we sit down, we run through the system, the guy, and it's a single person, $24,000. And according to the system, he gets an APTC, and so he's going to pay $200 a month just for the heck of it. Then he gets a letter from you guys saying he owes $500 and some odd dollars. That happens time after time after time. So while I understand what you're doing here, and that looks good, and if you want to take that to the governor, he'll like you, and that'll be cool. But it doesn't work when you're out in the field and in the trench. Where I have to check some boxes and saying I verify all this stuff, and it's Amber's name I'm putting in those boxes. I'm signing for her. I'm sorry, I'm a little brave. I got E&O, and I'm a big boy, and I've been in this business a hell of a long time, so I don't have any problem with that. But I'll tell you, that's a scary situation. Now what do? I come back to you and say, well, hell, you guys told me this is the way to do it. I really want to make this thing work. If for no other reason than we want to prove to everybody outside of the state of Nevada that we're good and we know what the hell we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ellis?
TV Ellis for the record. I have a different comment and an angle too. Although navigators, brokers, enrollment assisters, CACs, all enrollment facilitators in general in the state of Nevada have a lot more experience now enrolling in the Nevada Health Link. Not only enrolling, but understanding the real issues, technical or not. I feel that Xerox has excluded the population completely from being part of the solution. Yet, when customers call the call center sends them back to us. The problem with that is that we don't have the ability to troubleshoot accounts. We don't have access to this portal once that application is completed. We cannot make changes. We don't have a view of the system or those accounts as your customer service reps in the call center. So the customer service rep in the call center said, oh, yeah, I see the problem. Call this navigator, they can help you. No, we can't, because we have no access to the system. So part of the problem is the exclusion of the whole population that can actually help you. You yourself said 15 minutes ago that you are limited staff with only 250 people. There are over 1,200 licensed and trained navigators, brokers, enrollment assisters, and CACs in the state of Nevada that are ready to help should you give us access to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzoni and Ms. Ellis, and I would just like to respond to both of you. I'll respond to you first, Ms. Ellis. Ultimately, if we can provide access and working with the exchange, we're certainly happy to do that. I would like to address some of the comments about the system and whether or not we have kept the brokers and others engaged and involved in the solution. As you can imagine, since we have gone live on 10/1, we've been working very hard to try to get the system to a much better place. And while we would love to have more input from everyone, there's just a reality of getting it to a certain level to be able to do that. I am more than happy and more than open to sitting down with you. Back when when it was asked during the last board meeting, Mr. Johnson, who you referred to, Mr. Mazzoni, we asked him to come so that way he could represent us and sit with you and kind of live the day in the life of what you and your the consumers that you're helping are experiencing. And I'd be happy to come here and do that as well and sit with you and learn myself. Each day that I'm engaged, I'm picking up and learning a lot more. And there are things that I certainly see for improvement. And by no means any report that we're giving is to say that it's perfect or even close to perfect. It's to report what things we're putting in place to try to improve the process. And I realize there's much more to be done and more ground to cover. And we're here for the long haul to do it.
Ms. Joyner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In listening to all of the different experiences of the navigators and the agents, and I know within our programs in DHHS, I have people in our programs who help people try to navigate the system. And I have a system-wide sort of procedural question. Seems like for months we've been, writing notes and taking lists from the public comment of things that people have identified as problems, and we just heard some more. And I'll tell you one that's come to my attention lately that was mentioned in the most recent meeting of the full board, which was that people are actually being told when they go into your system that they are Medicaid eligible. Once they go through the enrollment process, however, Medicaid may determine they're not. And when that happens, they're being told to start a new account. The system locks them out, and they are not able to access their application again. They have to find a new email address, create a new account, enter all of their data again, including all of their children's social security numbers, find a translator, deal with all of that hassle and time again. And they are a new data point in your total number of people who have an account, which totally skews the data again. The response we've received from your call center is that, yes, indeed, they need to go back in and start a new account. So when we identify something like that that is affecting a large group of people, what do we do? is how do we escalate something so it makes it into your evening build, so that your tech guys say, this is a major ticket? And I guess that's my question is, now that we're back together, if we can identify things that are systemic, how do we get those to you
So
and make them a priority?
So you can either report those through the exchange, or I'll get you a place where you actually can report those items to us. I'm happy to take the email myself, and I will make sure it gets into the system. Just to maybe talk a little bit about the team and what they do. We do have a team in place that does what I guess we would call tier 2, escalation and triage of issues that come in. When a special escalated case happens, and we could name any one of them because I think each of you have probably had a few. When those come in, they go through our customer service group to look at them. They are looking to see if it's a known issue in the system that's preventing somebody from getting through. It's going through a triage. There's a defect entered. They go in and check to see if that particular defect is already known. If it's already known, it gets added to the list of people, or I'll say people rather than cases, that are affected by it. And it's going through a prioritization effort. I know we spoke about, we added 200, we're up to 250 call center agents. On the development side, from a development standpoint, we have added well over 200 development staff, including business analysts and developers, to actually go in and program the system. And what they are responsible for doing is as we prioritize these issues, whether it's a applied tax credit issue or some other account issue, they are responsible for going through, trying to figure out where the breakdown in the system is, what they need to do to try to fix it, and come up with the process to actually fix it. In some cases, on a nightly basis, we are doing data corrections to fix one-off cases, and while we are, working to resolve the larger system issue that's causing the problem. So, go ahead. Yes, please.
So I think this is Kristen Bach, and so what I'd like to do is address a couple things that I've heard both from the board and today, and that is the pace of our fixes that we're putting into the system. We seem to be, running, and we haven't caught you guys up. So what I would like to do Monday through Wednesday of next week is work with Mr. Mazzoni and a few of you guys on the team to come up with maybe the top, whatever the top number is, and I'm not going to limit myself, and get the question and answer type of process put in place. Because it seems as if we are missing information out to the field, and I feel that this would help us a great deal, both on publishing them onto the HealthLink site, which is what I heard today, and get those out to the broker community so we can start getting to the pace of the fix, so we can get those out. On the head count, we talked about 250 individuals. Those are call center head counts. Those are our inventory, our processing.
That people could simply sign back in wow, I'm not eligible for Medicaid now. Okay, let me go back in and get a QHP. But yet you've known about it for a while and there isn't a fix. So I think somehow Xerox needs to be getting direction from somebody on the board or somebody somewhere that says these are the priorities. And internally, somehow you're not prioritizing what we in the field see. And so I think that's where it's broken.
Madam Chair, I want to segue from what Amber is saying. This happened yesterday, so it's pretty clear in my mind exactly what went on. Won't give you any of the personal details, but we enrolled a gal, got down to the shopping cart, picked a health plan, and inadvertently in the process on the dental, it waived. I got to go back in and put her whole thing back in totally, and there's no way to fix it, no way to change it, no way to look at it, anything. I'm sorry, but unless, and maybe you guys are perfect and everything you do is exactly right, that's just a flaw in the system. That should not happen. Another point, and I do not mean this to be disrespectful, I really don't, because I had a great time, but I sat with 3 programmers from Choice Administrators, with what's his name, who's now in Maryland, and George, is that right? And with Aaron 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think we have a basic communication issue, because I would say something to the programmers, and it would take, and this happened, I think, all day from what I heard from the other people. There were 4 of us that did this. Sometimes it would take 10, 15 minutes for us to get the concept of what we're trying to do, what we're looking for, through to the programmers. I have nothing against those guys. I had a great time talking to them and everything else and all that stuff. There's not an issue with that. But you know, they don't speak the language I speak as an insurance agent, or the language that she speaks. And I'll guarantee you, I know Tibby speaks Spanish. She had to have, if she had, and Italian and a couple of other things. And she knows how to cuss at you in English really well. But you know what we have, we do have truly a failure to communicate here. And the failure is not because we're not trying. The failure is because we're so diverse where we're coming from, whether it's you guys at Xerox, and I know that you've worked on other programs and done Medicaid and other stuff. I got that. I don't know if you've ever walked in my shoes, or my friend back there, Bob Bishop, in his shoes. He's an insurance agent too. And there's a bunch of us insurance agents out here. There's a bunch of navigators. I actually think Tibby's probably a little low on a number of 1,200, but hell, even if it's just 1,200, that's still a lot of people that you could have access to in one way, shape, or another to bring in, even if you only sat down with a small group and said, what are some issues? I don't want it to be, this is not meant for me to be a bitch session. I really don't want it to be that. What I want to do is I want to be able to walk out here feeling like we made some progress to get to the point where Tibby can say to her people when they're going out to sit down in front of a client, no matter what they're buying, that she can be rest assured that as they walk that client through the enrollment process, that it's got to be quick. We don't make that much money on a per case basis. I mean, you know, I can't afford 5 hours on a Medicaid case. I can't afford 5 hours on a health case, for that matter. But that's what we're having to do nowadays.
If I can just jump in for a moment, I also would love if we can, and I love the idea about offering to come sit with some people, because I think, as you said, I think some people from Choice Administrators did that, and it seemed to be somewhat helpful. I would love to be able to come out of this meeting as well. It needs to be a little bit of a bitch session. But I would love to have a couple concrete things that we are doing. I mean, this does not need to go to the board to find out. So 2 comments. One is, Ms. Joyner, my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, is that the Xerox folks and the exchange staff folk, you know, meet far more frequently than once a week. But I believe they review all the priorities together. I wonder, though, if there needs to be somebody else or a couple other people added to that discussion process, and maybe it not just be staff and Xerox, maybe it be a navigator, a broker, you know, some people who are kind of trying to do lots of this that can offer some insight, because I think the problems are so vast, and so many of them probably would be the top 10 if there weren't 50 other problems. And so I don't know how to balance them. I know Mr. Haycock was saying, you know, payment needs to get to the carriers and the name. I mean, there's so many overwhelming issues that are going on. But I do think you bring up a great point that, and that's probably part of the communication that you're talking about, if somebody else could get to that table, or a couple other people with a few different viewpoints to talk about these priorities, I think that would be great too. So yeah, I'd like a couple ideas. Ms. Pratty-Boothman, and then Ms. Ellis, and Mr. McCool, just pop in when you're ready.
Gina Pratty-Boothman for the record, thank you. Listening and absorbing the information that I'm hearing, because I have not been as actively involved prior to the committee with regards to navigator CACs. However, I am quite familiar with population health management and the populations that we serve, and how to best provide what we need to for these individuals and consumers. And after listening to this information, the one thing that really sticks in my mind, and brings to light a question, nothing, as we're all aware, is more frustrating than filling out information and then having us kicked to another forum and go back, and that information is gone and you have to refill it out again. as an example, my daughter's in college. Every year we have to fill out the FAFSA. And that's where you go online, and I'm sure we're all quite familiar with that. The first year was absolutely arduous, and I wanted to rip my hair out because we lost data. I had to keep going back. I'm not sure what happened on the government level, if it was even there. However, the next year, when I went back in, and consequent years after that, to fill this out, all the data that we had pre-populated was populated. We didn't lose anything. I went from 4 hours of FAFSA filling out to her last 3 years of college, where it took me 10 minutes to go in. So again, has there been some thought given to?
Yes, and thank you for your comments. One of the next big features that will be coming in is, the renewal process. And as part of the renewal process, the idea is when a consumer goes in to renew their eligibility for next year and sign up again during the open enrollment period, is that the data will be there and available, and that they just need to make the changes, go in and change their account. So I appreciate your comment, and yes, that is meant to be a standard feature of the system as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. TV Ellis for the record. I'm going to take a different direction on this, because it seems to me that we're sharing with you examples on the field which you're not familiar with, and we're asking you to give us solutions, but we're not your governing body. So we're not here to give you instructions. For what I understand, you receive instructions from the exchange. So here's my suggestion. I think this committee has a responsibility to submit recommendations to the board, to give instructions to the staff, to expand their outreach proposal to include all enrollment assist or facilitators, including brokers. Because when they are going to email, called in, walk and knock on the doors, we've been there already. We were the ones that enrolled them. We were the ones that were in front of them when they decided not to pay. We were the ones that were there when they decided not to complete and sign the application. These are our clients, our customers. So we need to be the ones making the phone calls. We need to be the ones sending the emails. And that would have happened had we had our dashboards, which we don't. So in lieu of the dashboard, I think that we need to be involved in the outreach, because when I created 5 accounts for one single client, when you send me that spreadsheet with my clients, I'm going to identify that Mario Rocha, by the way, had 5 accounts. So I'm not going to send him 5 emails or 5 phone calls or 5 mail communications. I'm going to send him 1. So we need to be an integral part of this process. And also the system fix. So I'm encouraging my committee peers to set a distinct set of recommendations on the role of all the enrollment facilitators in this process, which are an important part of this, and include them both in the solution for the technical fixes, which we must continue to work on to make this successful, but also on this outreach campaign. Because in your presentation to the board, I heard that you included the carriers. You are not including the enrollment assisters. And the carriers don't have these people already, yet. But we enroll them, so we need to be part of it.
So what is your thought on what could work? I guess there's a question of what could work in the next 40 days and what could work after open enrollment. And I don't know if those are 2 different things. I'm thinking they probably are 2 different things. But what is it that these 1,200 people, or a very small portion, however many of them, what is it, as you're listening, is there something that they can do? Can they get access to more of the database? Can they help with the outreach? I don't know if there's any thoughts kind of floating. So I don't know. I'd like to, because I think it'd be fine to say include them in, but what does that mean and what would that mean?
So this is Kristen Baca. So what I would like to do, I have a few takeaways that I've been working through here. I do agree that we would like to work with you guys as we prioritize some of the issues that we are working through today. I hope as we work with you guys and we share some of those informations, we have shown you, we know where things are stuck, and we're trying to get those fixes in. So we will work with you guys and show you how we're prioritizing today, and come up with a process so we can show you the list of items that we have. The other is the sit down for the documentation. We've already talked through that. The renewal process, this is another area that as we go into open enrollment for next year, it is very important that we work with you guys, our carriers, and the board, is to make sure that we understand all of the requirements that we want to hit for next year, going into 2015. So that process needs to be kicked off. However, we're into closing this open enrollment period out as of 3/31. So our attention is right now, though short term it looks, 3/31 is kind of our deadline for that area. But we will be coming with you guys to make sure you understand what our open enrollment process is and all the pieces that the high level project plan to that area. Dashboards, if there is a dashboard that you guys are looking for, I would like to help create that. So and figure out what you guys are looking for that we're not giving you today. Many of the items you guys are getting from the board presentations that we're giving you weekly. Not sure if those are helpful. So this is it would be a nice avenue to see if those items are helpful, and we would continue and give those to you guys on a weekly basis.
Can I interrupt you there just real
Yes, ma'am.
quickly? I believe it was my understanding, somebody clear up if I'm wrong, that the navigators, when they went into the system, were supposed to have their own dashboard of clients and status and where they were in the process, and Ms. Ellis might be able to expand further, but I believe that's what she's talking about, their own individual dashboards to kind of, so they can see who should I recontact, who has not paid yet, or who.
Okay.
TV Ellis, for the record, yes, all enrollment facilitators, navigators, enrollment assisters, CACs, and brokers, when they sign up for their account as authorized and licensed to enroll, accounts were created for them. Mm-hmm. At that point, we would have a dashboard.
Right.
When we start enrolling people, those people will go into our dashboard, just like the brokers use on a regular basis. That dashboard caused tremendous amount of issues and problems at the beginning, so it was terminated, canceled, no, whatever term you want to use on it, and we started enrolling using the individual accounts. So we have no way, and by the way, by HIPAA laws and privacy laws cannot retain that information. So I cannot go back and try to fix an account from an individual that I enrolled back in November or December, because I don't know how to get in unless that individual gives me access. Had I had my dashboard, that dashboard was supposed to message me, email me, and let me know so-and-so needs to pay, so-and-so needs to are incomplete, so-and-so, a list of to-do things for those clients, which we wouldn't have this conversation today about your outreach process because we would be the ones following up. So that's where we need to start, is looking at what's not working and if it's going to work, even if it's for next enrollment period.
Right.
I'm not expecting you, we have 30 days to fix all these things. But you promised to the board that you were going to enroll about 80,000 people in 30 days. With a system that is not working, I am extremely concerned that we may not be able to reach those numbers. And this isn't only CERF, this is our client, this is our enrollment process. So I like to really consider making succinct suggestions to move and send a recommendation to the board of how to quickly resolve this. I know that there is another committee that is being set up with brokers and navigators. By the time they go through the learning curve and make recommendations, it's going to be too late.
Okay.
And then,
yes,
if you
I'm
wouldn't mind,
sorry. I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. We do have a short-term window for the outreach campaign. So what we will do is share with you guys the campaigns. Madam Chairman did ask for some of those outreach campaigns. We're getting those to her today. I will work with Ms. Vice Chair and get those over to her also. I was going to mess your name up. I apologize. And get those over to you guys, and we'll figure out a process on how to do those outbound outreach campaigns alongside with you guys. So that we'll take that as a takeaway. The last is the access to the system. I believe we will take that as a takeaway and talk to senior executive team.
So, Lynn Atkins for the record. So I'm hearing a list, and I guess here's my list, and let's make sure we all have the same list. First of all, to have the Xerox staff work more directly with brokers and agents to identify key sticking issues
Yes,
or
ma'am.
problems or whatever word we want to use.
Yes.
Have brokers and agents be part of the prioritization process with staff and with Xerox. Figure out a way, whether it be for the rest of this period or for open enrollment, but to unlock the system so Medicaid denials will be able to just log back in, have all of their information there, and they can kind of just move forward with the process. That sounds like a task that would be very helpful. Fix and start reusing the dashboard that the Navigators and Enrollment Sisters had, because that does sound like that, boy, yeah, that would have been really great for all the campaigns. Hold on, I'm getting my list here. And I think those are the big items that I have here on my list.
Madam Chair, I like to also note to the Xerox team, every time we enroll an individual, we put in whoever the enrollment facilitator or broker does the application, we put in our name and our information. So in your search for these 219 who started an application or 100,000 who had not signed, you have the ability to search for those who have been in the system through the assistance of a broker or navigator or enrollment assister. And in the absence of a dashboard, then you need to become the dashboard and send us that information so we can troubleshoot it. And for those who were directly into the internet and did it for themselves, then yes, use your 250 operations individuals. But that way, I think it's a true collaboration and it's a true solution. It's feasible, it's doable. And you have the ability to search for that. Look into that field and then separate. That will reduce the number of challenge to you and it will help through success.
And this is Kristen Bach again. You are exactly where I was on the dashboard is a longer timeline. There are queries we can run in the system, though. We would dump it out to an Excel or some format and get them out to you guys. And that is something that we can do. So we will work with you guys to show you how we can run the queries and get those out on whatever timeline, whether, not going to go daily at the moment, but maybe a weekly basis at the moment to give you guys that support.
And the only other thing I just wanted to add, regarding the unlocking of the accounts in order to allow the Medicaid decisions to come back and allow us to process those, we will look to try to find a solution. In reality, over the next 4 to 5 weeks, as much as I would love to promise that we'll be able to do that, the reality may be that we have to go through the process of re-entering some of those. And so what Kristen and I can do as part of that, and part of why we added some additional resources, is to try to take the burden off of the consumer, so that way we can do that for them. They may have to be on the phone with us, but I understand the burden it creates, and I wish it wasn't in that place, but I think we will do whatever we can to help people through.
And this is Kristen Bach. I do want to add on the Medicaid, I do believe that our process today, how the account gets locked and we can't change that. Not sure we have a short-term solution, but I would like to find a way to get a fix out so we can remove that email address so we can actually get back in the system and take them through the process. Not sure it's the best way, but short-term, at least it will help us. Maybe we can do something with creating a copy of that account and then following it through. But we have, I have a couple ideas, but we will get with some of our developers and talk through what that would look like long-term. One, I don't know if this is possible short-term because it needs to be audited, so I want to make sure that we're not saying we're going to fix that short-term.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amber Joyner for the record. Just as a follow-up, I appreciate that, and I appreciate those efforts. But I just wanted to also clarify that in case somebody's over there prioritizing, that I make very clear that it's not just the group who are denied by Medicaid and then have to go back in. it appears to me that there's a large group of people who just can't get back into their accounts. And so for long term, you would want people even who are in Medicaid this year, if next year they drop out of Medicaid because they have a little bit higher income, you would want them to be able to go in, populate all their data, and then go into a QHP. So I think long term, my bigger worry is just anybody who's getting locked out of their account for an account that they've saved data into, can we please try to preserve it for them? Because it's a very arduous process for a lot of people.
Thank you, Ms. Joyner. I think what I'd like to do is close this discussion item. We've got a lot of other things to talk about, but I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something. It was going to be brilliant, I'm sure. Yeah. Just give me a moment to capture that again. Oh, no, what I do want, and one of the things I think that's been frustrating to everybody, I appreciate and I want to hear, we can't get this done by whatever time. I would much rather have you tell staff, tell us, tell the board what you're asking for. We will work on it, but don't expect it, or it can't be done at some certain time. I think looking back at this, I think that's been part of a larger problem, which is the people who are designing things. If we asked for too much, or we asked for the moon, and it was somebody needed to tell us, you asked for 30 things, we can deliver 20 in time. But instead, everyone's running around trying to get these 30 things done, I'm assuming, and therefore nothing gets done. So I appreciate and want to hear okay, here's, I think, realistic expectations. This is what we can do, what you're suggesting. We don't think that can work. Here's some other solutions. I love this discussion that's going on right now. I hope it leads somewhere, but I just wanted to share that because I know I've been a vocal critic, but I appreciate the honesty and the dialogue that's going on right now. So go ahead.
Real quick, Madam Chair, Damon Haycock for the record. Would you like to end this item by asking Xerox to come back and respond to a future committee meeting on the requests that have been placed upon them?
Mr. Mazzoni wants to speak before I speak.
If you don't mind. Dwight Mazzoni for the record. I agree with you. I think prior to that, we should have a list of things like what's important on the dashboard, if there's going to be some sort of an organization of effort put out to have a navigator, some CACs, and a sister, and a couple of brokers sit down with you guys and go through it. We need to delineate that. By the way, if you're going to do 5,000 or going to do 150,000 people in the next roughly 30 days, that's 5,000 a day. We haven't been able to do 655 a day, which was our goal from October the 1st, and we told everybody that was unrealistic. There isn't one person in the insurance business that thought that was a realistic goal. If you had the best possible system already built and didn't have to worry about it, people aren't going to, you'd have to do 655 people a day. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry, it just is. So let's be realistic about what we're asking for. And a big thing to me is if you're going to start working on this, and I've talked to Aaron about this a little bit, is we have to have the ability to go in and change some fields, such as one of my clients, they gave me an income of $42,000, and they came back with their tax return, it was $101,000. I don't want to have to go back in and do the whole damn thing again on a 6-person family. It doesn't make sense. I mean, that's ludicrous. You know, it really is. We need to work on that. That's part of what we have to do. So I'd like to have a list.
No, I agree with that, Mr. Mazzoni. I think some of the stuff's in the weeds, and so like whether there be a committee or a forum with some designated, not everybody call in, and a designated group of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 brokers, navigators, CACs, a little group of everybody that has some sort of a forum and opportunity to talk with Xerox, to both make suggestions and talk about challenges that everyone's having. But things like what's on the dashboard, I don't know, but that stuff like that I think is in the weeds and needs to be discussed in a smaller group setting. So Ms. Pratty-Boothman, and then
Gina Pratty-Boothman for the record. Thanks, Madam Chair. To dovetail into what you were saying and what Mr. Haycock was referring to, Is it acceptable for this committee to request either a laundry list of to-dos from Xerox? What individuals, I mean, to me, there's urgent work plan that needs to be established. What's going to be accomplished with timeframes in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks with regards to our quote-unquote laundry list of expectation, along with those individuals that are going to be selected to work with, as Mr. Mazzoni and Ms. Ellis suggested. I'd like to see that. I'd like, to see that plan.
I think what I'd like to do to our Deputy Attorney General, are we able to, if we can get some sort of a very short kind of report to the board meeting for next Thursday, are we able to do that, even though at the board meeting earlier today we didn't put an agenda item of discuss the minutes from this committee?
Madam Chairperson, yes, you can add to the agenda up until Monday at 9 a.m. But that would be working with whoever puts the agenda together for the next meeting, so I would talk to the man next to you, and yeah, we could. The agenda is open from a legal perspective until Monday morning at 9 a.m.
Okay, I'd like what I think I'd like to do is just at least have a report what this committee talked about, suggestions from this committee, and then we can get some guidance from the board meeting on Thursday.
And Ms. Atkins, certainly Kristen and I are capturing the action items here. What I'd suggest is maybe following this meeting, Kristen and I will document those, send those to you just to make sure that we captured them, and then if you like, at least if it's acceptable, we can put those on the agenda for next week's board meeting and at least discuss from our standpoint that we heard those issues and what we're doing about them.
I think that sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Damon Haycock for the record. If you send me what you want, I will ensure there is a placeholder on the next board meeting agenda.
So do we need a motion of any sort to, or can I just do the list based on what we were discussing, and then Mr. Haycock and I can get that on the agenda?
Madam Chair, I would recommend a motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
Gina Parati Boothman. Does anyone need to take a break, or can we kind of go forward? Okay, so agenda item 5. If I can't recall why this was on. I think there's been some concern. Okay, so I think there's been some concern about the. There's been some great people at the call center, but then there's been some not some great people at the call center. Let's put it that way, as is probably true in any profession. So if we can, do you want to take this, Mr. Mazzoni?
I'll take this. Dwight Mazzoni, for the record, I'll take a stab at it. I've had very, very good experiences fairly recently, and I've had horrible, bad, hung up on by some of the staff at the call center. I think one of the things, as I look around in my industry, the peer group at Tibby's people, we're out there pounding the dirt, getting these people to do what they need to be doing, buying the health insurance, getting on Medicaid. I don't care what they do. And for somebody who, at least my perception, somebody in a call center who has no background, no experience, no education about insurance, telling me what to do, I don't mind them talking to me, and I've had some good experiences with some of these people. That's fine. But when they tell me, no, you can't do it that way, you got to do it this way, and the day before I was told something totally different by the call center. That's number one. Number two is we have a language problem in the call center. There are some people, I have no idea what the hell they're saying. And that's just not right. I'm sorry. You got to have people that can enunciate the words, that when they tell me their name, that I could write it down. And half the time, I don't even understand, not half the time. Some of the time, I don't understand the name, whether because of their voice inflection, because of whatever. It just doesn't work. The other thing is, and I can't tell you how many people for both insurance and for Medicaid have said, well, I was talking to the people at the health exchange. I called the Health Link, and I was talking to them, and they said, well, I should talk to an agent. And if they live near me, then guess what? I'm one of the agents. So my name crops up, and I get a phone call. It doesn't matter what they were doing. Or I would send someone to the exchange for information, and I've had them come back and say, well, they said they don't really understand that. I should talk to the agent. That is not, I'm sorry, and I'm sure you're trying to hire people that are as qualified as you can get them, but that's not acceptable. We have a very definite problem. And I don't know of any insurance agent, well, there may be a few, I guess. Insurance agents would want to go to work in the call center and be a call center person. There might be some. But, I mean, I couldn't do it. I'd go nuts. They'd give me an hour in there, and you might as well, you know, I already know that the right hand goes under the left arm when you're getting fitted for a straitjacket in this business. So you got to be careful. But we do have a definite communication issue. And the other thing is, in my mind, when Tibby calls in and or one of her people calls in, or I call in, and I'm working with a call center person, I say, gee, maybe we need to kick this up a notch. There should be, I don't care what you call them, you know, a notch above person or a supervisor, whatever. There should be somebody that you can go to at that point that's available. I realize that's a staffing issue, and I don't know how to staff. I don't even want to try me because I wouldn't know what to do. But I realize that's a staffing issue. But, you know, I get a lady named Fran. There was a gal the other night that actually called me about 2 cases that she was working on. Very good, very efficient, gave me good information, gave me a good idea about what to do, how to handle it, how to do it. But many times they don't really know. And I'd rather they say, gee, Dwight, I'm sorry, I don't know. But let me do this. Let me find out. And I think this was said earlier in today's meeting. I can't tell you how many people have told me, clients, our clients, your clients, my clients, Tibby's clients, have told me, they're told by the call center, someone will call them back. Well, I'll raise my hand because I'm one of those guys that never got the callbacks. And not just the guy I mentioned. I mean, someone will say, well, someone will get back to you. Now, it's been a little bit better in the last couple of weeks because of the relationship that we've built from the group of people that met with the programmers. But still, it's very difficult. When someone says, I don't know the answer to that, let me get back to you. Here I am 3 weeks later, still waiting to try and figure it out. So I think we have a major communication issue between what the people you hire, what they know, what they're involved in, what their level of ability is. And I'm sorry, this ain't bragging because somebody in this room has more years than I, but I'm in my 41st year. Next year, I think I'm probably going to learn how to do this damn business. So I think we just have that type of an issue. And that's not putting anybody down. It's just saying we've got to be able to have better communication across the board.
So do any other committee members have comments on this topic? Ms. Ellis?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I think this speaks to the root cause of what we have been talking about all along. The call center is doing what they were told to do. Basically, I'm assuming that. That's what you guys were tasked to do, whatever list of tasks those are. And then again, sending them back to the brokers or navigators for additional input or solutions, which we have no access to the system. So going back to my previous comment, we cannot be part of the solution if we don't have access to the system. And if the call center, and I understand the reasons behind it, you have been ramping staff, pushing them through the pipeline. They don't have the knowledge, the experience. They're doing the best they can. I get it. And you need to give us access so that, A, we don't call your call center bugging you to fix problems that we can self-fix. And we don't have the clients playing ping pong between the call center and the facilitator. So as a committee, I think that another notation we need to give to the board is what is the and they don't give us access because somebody hasn't told them to give us access. So we need the board to consider having a meeting with the staff. What is the benefit or the risk of opening access to troubleshoot within the system case management. That's what the call center is trying to do, case management. So that's my recommendation if the committee agrees, or I'd like to hear any comments, but this is a solution. I mean, the call center issues that we're having problems, they're doing what they're being told to do.
Aren't, if I might ask, I thought the call center staff were supposed to be navigators and go through all that training. Is that what we ended up?
They don't
Is that
enroll,
where we ended up?
but they don't enroll. So you have the training on something that is theoretical, but you don't enroll. If you don't enroll, when we call and try to troubleshoot, or when a client calls and try to troubleshoot, they don't understand. They never enroll in their life.
Madam Chairman.
Sure.
Do you want to?
Ms. Prouty Boothman, why don't you go first, and then.
Thank you. Jeannie Prouty Boothman for the record. If I recall, when this committee first convened, as we started navigating through all of our discussion and expectation of what this organization, this being Xerox, was going to provide at that call center, and I remember it clearly. I recall that there was to be, or there was discussion that there was to be, a very clear and specific, detailed orientation, if you will, quote unquote, of these individuals and the staff that were to man that call center, because we all on this committee realized the significant importance of it. That is the front door for these members or individuals in application, and we were all very concerned about what the expectation was of these individuals in speaking to and or providing direction. And yes, I agree with Ms. Ellis, case management. That utilization review and case management happens to be right up my alley again. And when I look at what these individuals in the call center need to do and are required to do, again, there were two elements that came out, and that was with regards to truly having a clear, solid education, orientation, training, perhaps amenable to some sort of health background understanding, health operations. And if I'm just a little appalled, grant you I have not been involved as these individuals have ongoing. However, I'm just quite discouraged to hear that call centers handling these kinds of clients are exhibiting this lack of understanding, education, and ability to communicate with the clients.
So this is any other comments? Oh, so this is Kristen Baca, and so what I wanted to walk through is how we have our call center set up today. So our program, our typical program is a 6-week program. We did tighten that timeline because we pushed very quickly to get people on the floor. Our call quality has dropped because of that. However, that does not mean that we're ignoring it. As call quality drops, we do take a look at their grades and scores, and we bring them back into training for coaching opportunities where we feel that they have deficiencies, and I think it's 4 or 5 criteria that we grade each call, not each call, sorry, there's a sample call of every CSR. So from there, we go and bring you back in on a coaching side of it and make sure that we're dealing with some of those problems. And proficiency of healthcare, answering a call, having the correct information and giving the same information the right way, and having empathy on the phone and all of those things. Those are very specific criteria that we do have in our call center. So we have dropped. Our call quality has dropped, and because of that, we are taking more opportunities to go in and coach and help our CSR reps. We do have a tier in our call centers. We have tier 1 and 2 today, and we do have anything higher than a tier 1 or 2. They're more educated in this industry, and they are able to do more both on a escalated or even some of our broker calls. They're able to take some of those broker calls, and they're part of some of that dedicated team that we have there. We do have leads and SMEs within the call centers also, and we call them, sometimes those are the walkers that come up and down to be able to answer questions on the fly, to be able to help individuals to get through the system. So though we haven't ignored it, it is still on our forethought to make sure that our call quality does pick up. I believe Xerox is very much an industry standard in the call centers, and we work very hard to do that. We are drifting right now on that. On the CS cards, the case management, you're exactly right. In this case, what we have seen as we are auditing and do some of these call audits, sometimes they're not putting up the follow back dates. So as they're coming into the system, Kristen Baca should have a queue, and within that queue shows me my callbacks from previous periods. So I set those dates. And so those are part of the coaching and quality scores that are out there. So if they miss these and they're not following up and they're not clearing their queues out, it does impact their call quality and their grades that they have. And then prior to, even though we did condense the 6-week training schedule down to 3, they still had to pass to get on the floor. So, you know, we did put some rigorous, though we scrunched it, we did put some rigorous testing in place prior to throwing them on the floor.
If I might ask one follow-up question, then, Mr. Mazzoni, they are taking applications, though, on the phone, aren't they?
They are.
Okay,
But,
so
we are putting some applications back to the broker community.
and who decides that? How is that working? Is it just volume? Is it just, Ms. Ellis?
TV Ellis for the record. We were told, brokers, enrollment assisters, and navigators, that the call center was not taking applications. Right, and we were not told that they were now.
No, and this is Kristen Baca. I did just talk to our call center managers, and we are putting them back out to the community. Yes.
When did this start?
I'll have to check into that, and I promise to take that as a takeaway. Oh, I'm sorry. And the last one, you guys did ask some great questions on how many reps were licensed, and there are different types of licensings in our call centers, and I'll get that breakdown today, but we do have 29 licensed rep to take an application from end to end, and that is why we're working with the community, because we do have, you know, multiple applications coming through the process right now.
A couple of things that struck me as I was going through here. I'm surprised that Gina didn't throw it at me. Dwight Mazzoni for the record. And I understand what Tibby's talking about, but I also know that in the working with insurance companies and also a little bit with some of the people in your operation, there's a funny little law called HIPAA, and there's also PHI. And quite honestly, I doubt seriously that you could let me have access to some of that information unless there's a good, valid certification process for me getting to have access to that. That would concern me, because that's the new HIPAA laws are more egregious than ever before, and I've been around since HIPAA was invented, so hasn't Gina. I remember those days. So I think we have to be very cautious when we say we want to have access to that information. I think we could have it. I don't see there's a problem with not having, being kicked out of it. There's got to be a way that settles everybody's internalness about the fact that I have access to information. Quite honestly, at least in my business, I probably know more about people's body, every aspect of their life and everything in health when it comes to health insurance, and it's voluntary. I don't ask questions anymore because I don't have to, but people are telling us everything. And it's been that way since I've been in the business. So it's not new to us, but now it's a little different. Now we don't have to ask it and people are offering it. The other thing is just a suggestion. I don't know if this would work or not. Maybe it wouldn't. But, grab 2 or 3 people from Tibby's office, grab 3 or 4 agents or whatever, meet a facilitator day. Bring them in, take them back there, show us what it looks like. I couldn't work in that cubicle or wherever I don't even know how they work. I don't even know what it looks like back there. But maybe it would give them a better understanding of who we are, her people, producers, and everybody else. And maybe it would give us a better understanding. So when I call in, I did call yesterday, whoever I talked to yesterday afternoon about 5 o'clock. We were chatting, and she said, "So you know Patrick?" And I said, "I know Patrick." "At your shop?" No, he's a broker. I said, "Oh, you mean Pat Cassell?" I said, "Yeah, that's him, Patrick." No, he's never Patrick. He's always Pat. And because we had the meeting. So there are some relationships being built, between us on the outside and people on the inside. So maybe one of the ways to help you guys help us is to bring all of us together, meet a facilitator day, have some coffee and donuts at 9 o'clock, or I don't know. I mean, you can let your imagination. Let's not meet over at Chevy's because we probably drink too much. But,
Thank you.
maybe, but there are people that would like that, right, Bob?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mazzoni. We would certainly. Sorry, I speak low. Thank you, Mr. Mazzoni, and I think that's actually a good idea. That's a strategy that we've certainly used in other programs and other places, and I'm more than happy to do that, with the exchange and make that happen.
Thank you. I think that's not an action item, but I think it's the same larger picture that Ms. Ellis keeps talking about, which is we've got to figure out a way, even though all of it won't be done by the end of March, there has got to be a way to harness the value of all because the Navigator program, you brokers are fabulous, but the Navigator program being brand new has been one of the shining parts of this entire process for the state of Nevada, I think. I mean, it's just worked. And they are so committed and they want to help and they are constantly, yes, they're frustrated and they're pulling their hair out, but they are not throwing in the towel. And so they are just, I think they are such a valuable resource that if there is a way, again, I think it's your overall comment that with the 250, 300 people, whatever it is, whatever the number is at any given time, being able to use the people on the field that are the experts in getting through the backlog, helping train, understanding, figuring out systems, I think would be great. So I think even though it's not an action item, I think we should put this kind of on our list of things we're kind of just presenting to the board, just ideas. So
Lynn?
Mr. Nope. All right, Mr. Mazzoni, last comment, and then I want to close this item out.
On item 6, regarding using navigators to relieve backlog of written email and fax correspondence, I don't know there must be a legal issue about that.
Mr. Mazzoni, we're still on item 5.
Oh, I thought we were on 6.
No, it's just, hold
I'm ahead
on.
of
I wanted to
myself.
close
Excuse
item
me,
5.
Close item 5.
So with that, I'm going to close
Lynn?
item 5, and we are going to go to item 6. And before Mr. Mazzoni,
When Mr. McCoy had a comment.
Lynn?
oh, Mr. McCoy, please.
Yes, from the north, item 5, before you move on. And I know
I
we've
have
already.
not moved on from item 5.
What? I'm sorry?
Go
We're on
ahead.
item 5, okay. I just wanted to make a comment and then kind of raise a question since we have the Xerox representatives with us. You've already stated, and I think it reflects probably every member of the committee, our frustration with the fact that, I told you so, because we did. We talked about staff sizing, hours, and one of the most important aspects is training, and I don't think Xerox provided enough training for the call center staff. I said so at the time, and I say so again. I pointed out I have 3 daughters. They all worked in call centers. One still works at an insurance-based call center, and she does training. My wife was in call center work for 20 years. She's done training, and they all at the time said, this is a disaster, and it turned out to be as they said. And so my question is to Xerox, we're going to shut this enrollment down in 30 days, give or take. What then, in terms of staffing, and then looking towards October, are we going to be in a position to reevaluate training, staff size, hours of operation, et cetera, all the issues that this committee raised a long time ago that wasn't listened to? Because I guess my final point would be they weren't listening then. Are they going to be listening now and in the future on these issues?
Great questions.
So I will say you have our full attention, and we are listening. And sorry, hopefully that's now more clear. That's okay. So I just wanted to say again, Greg Vidiello for the record. You have our full attention. We are listening. The investments that we're making now are investments we're making for long term, and we want this to run correctly, and we want to be able to do the right thing, and we'll continue to heed your advice and and work with you to make sure we turn this into the right program.
I guess just a follow-up question, what does happen with the call center and what does happen with the staff? I think that's a fabulous question. It seems actually so simple, but what does happen on April 1st with the call center and the staff, and how does all this work?
So typical, this is Kristen Bacchus. So typical environment after an open enrollment is you do ramp down. However, this open enrollment, we do have inventory, and we will have inventory still to be worked, meaning that we need to have eligibility documents coming through. So we will be ramping down steadily. However, we do it in a way that we're not impacting. We can maintain, a specific level of inventory that's coming in through the system. It is our opportunity to go in and retrain where appropriate. And so we take many of the people through a retraining process and help them to improve their call quality scores. So currently today we're at, I'm going to average is around 233 call center reps. Those do ramp down. How much and the plan for that, I think, is probably a takeaway. And we were not going to know all of the aspects to how we're going to ramp down. So some of them are going to be projections, and we need to know how many calls are still coming in. So we want to maintain both our SLAs that we're trying to get to today, and then have it in a way that we're not impacting any members.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. I have a question more to the committee and to perhaps to ask the board. Open enrollment ends for QHPs. However, we have a one-point entry system in the exchange in Nevada. Medicaid will continue. So both the portal and the call center, should they continue with the understanding the Medicaid application will continue to not trickle in, but maybe swamp in as we close individual open enrollment for QHPs?
Another great question. Ms. Joyner, do you have any Ms. Joyner works with Mr. Wilden on Medicaid. Do you have any comments on that at all, or what's the thought process? And then we'll let Xerox.
Thank you, Amber Joyner, for the record. This is a conversation that we have constantly. I mean, I think it's an illusion to think that March 31st is actually going to be the close of open enrollment, because we didn't hit our targets for either the QHPs or Medicaid. And so one of our concerns is that we definitely want to get that message out, that people can continue to apply for Medicaid. There is no open enrollment for that. And so that is a concern. I'm interested in the answers about the call center for that reason. And I don't think I have any specific information to add, but it's definitely something we worry about.
So this is Greg Videla again, and so I think what will be important is we're obviously committed to staffing. We have to sit down and we'll have to work with the exchange to figure out what is the appropriate level of staffing to be at. We certainly don't want to be back in any situation close to where we were back in November and December. So based on what projected volumes are and what we believe is going to be happening, from a Medicaid program standpoint and new applicants coming in, we'll have to work together to figure out what the appropriate level is.
Thank you. Mr. Haycock and then Mr. Mazzoni, and then we'll get to item 6.
So Damon Haycock, for the record, I want to make sure that the committee does recognize that the contractual requirements of Xerox to perform the duties that are outlined in their contract are predicated off of specific utilization, and that the federal government of all folks has requested that we reevaluate our cost allocation plan between the Department of Health and Human Services and the exchange on the utilization in that population who utilizes the business operations solution and the eligibility engine and all of those issues, including the call center. So whereas the staff may need to remain at a certain level or even increase, be prepared that there may be a requirement, or at least a suggested requirement, that cost allocation be allocated appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzoni. Final question or comment on item number 5.
I would just remind everybody that this year, this open enrollment period is 180 days long. Next year's, or the open enrollment period at the end of this year will be, 51 days long?
It's shorter.
Something like that.
Yep.
Much, much shorter.
Yep.
A lot more intensity probably now that we sort of know what we're doing by the time we get there and all that stuff. So we need to keep that in mind as we have these discussions.
Thank you very
may be not any of us, but there might be one or two or a dozen, who knows? And I don't know what the story is for the Tibby's people or the other people. That's something to take a look at.
Ms. Joyner?
Oh, sorry.
Ms. Joyner? Oh, Ms. Ellis.
TV Ellis for the record. I would suggest that item 6 maybe is rewarded to include all enrollment facilitators in the exchange. Because all enrollment facilitators or producers are, by definition, in the exchange, navigators, CACs, enrollment assisters, and brokers.
Thank you. So with that, Mr. McCool, do you have anything on item 6, or can we close that and move to 7?
No, are we going to move back to 3?
We are. Mr. Haycock's going to do 7 quickly, and then we're going to go back to 3, and then we're going to go to 8. So the Xerox people are off the hot seat. Oh, yes, one final comment from Xerox before they step aside.
Yeah, first, I would like to thank you for allowing us to come here today and be able to speak with you. I certainly hear and understand, and again, we are committed to trying to do everything possible to make it better and make it work the right way. So, and I hope you feel that with us walking out today.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Haycock, item 7.
For the record, Damon Haycock, I'll be presenting item 7, the Comeback Marketing Campaign. I also have here in Vegas in the room Katie Coleman, who will be coming up to the table if there's any specific questions for KPS3. I do not know if Stephanie Cruz is still in Carson City, but she will also be able to come to their table and answer questions as well. So I'm going to tee this up and hopefully get this pretty quick. Not to go over a huge amount of background, we all know that the enrollment numbers are dismally low compared to what the strategic plan requires. The board approved 118,000 by, I believe, the end of May, or excuse me, May 1st, and we are, as you heard today, just over 19,000, so we are well below. And so there was a request at the last board meeting, in fact, by Chair Atkins, also Vice Chair Atkins of the board, to come up with some form of comeback and so talking with the marketing KPS3, there was a couple different approaches, but before I go into some details, I just want to say that each of these or both of these are predicated on a system that is working well. And so if we bring a bunch of people back to the web portal and they encounter the same types of issues that you've heard today in every board meeting for the last 3 months, it can potentially be a waste of resources if they can't get through the system. And I'll circle back to that at the end. But so the first option is a targeted approach. There are there's about 70,000 people at the last count. I think this was done on Monday. I know there was about 60,000 that was mentioned at the board, but 70,000 people who have started the process of enrolling but haven't quite finished. We're considering them in limbo. And the best approach, and KPS3's recommendation from a marketing standpoint, is to do some targeted direct marketing to those individuals. And I think you've heard from Xerox today that they're trying to do the exact same thing in their own method. So, of course, as Ms. Ellis has mentioned, if people have access to the data, they can go in and actually do that targeted approach. If they have access to the addresses or emails or those types of things. So this is one of those options, but it is predicated on having that access through Xerox. So with that, they'll be able to then do targeted information, targeted outreach, and be able to attempt to bring those people back. But again, as you've heard today, that no one is absolutely confident that there isn't doubles and triples and quadruples of accounts in the system. And so that system and that data would need to be filtered before any real process or progress could be made. Depending on the amount of messaging that needs to be changed, the best estimate, and I'm going to speak for Katie and Stephanie unless they want to correct me, is that it would take about 8 to 10 business days to actually move forward with changing this messaging. And so if you look at when the next board meeting is, next Thursday, unless they could create one a lot faster, which I don't know if we can get out in time, the response then you're looking at a maximum of about 14 days of actual airtime. And so you've got to look at the initial investment and determine, are you going to get any bang for your buck? Are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck? Are we duplicating what Xerox is doing? If you guys go back to the board and recommend that you have access and that they pull those queries and send you those names of your former clients, are we going to be information overloading these folks and potentially saturating the market? These are just some potential concerns that I think this committee needs to look at. And of course, again, all of this is moot if you can't get through the system. So with that, I'm going to turn it over back to the committee. And if there's any specific questions, we have Stephanie Cruz in Carson City and Katie Coleman here in Vegas.
Thank you very much. Ms. Parati-Boothman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Gina Parati-Boothman for the record. While I appreciate and respect the consideration of this type of process with which to communicate to our populations in trying to encourage them to re-navigate this system, it's rather like putting the cart before the horse, because the system has opportunity, and of course we need to also consider our fiduciary responsibility. And if we're going to put a great deal of money, or approve to put a great deal of money into a campaign such as this, which if our system was successful, I believe this would be a great idea and it would be successful. I'm of the opinion at this stage of this process, it would be a waste of money.
Ms. Joyner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amber Joyner for the record. I had two questions. The first one is, there's an if targeted approach. If they could get the email addresses, can't we find out that question today? Is it a matter of Xerox's permission, or why is it an if?
So Damon Hagar for the record, I'll take this. So first of all, it's not necessarily just permission, but as Mr. Mazzonia said, there's a lot of folks that have been enrolled in through their individual portal. And yes, as Ms. Ellis has also said, navigators and brokers were told to, especially for those people who don't have email addresses, creating one a dummy email, for lack of better terms, just to have them have it, and then they can't go back and access it to get into their system, was going to be a horrendous return when they come back to try to access their account. And so there may not be that data that they could grab, and yeah.
Right. Okay, and that seems to be exactly duplicating what Xerox plans to do. Is that correct? As far as the email addresses they do have, they're going to send stuff out.
And Damon Hacker, again for the record, it is a duplicative effort. It depends on your confidence level in Xerox's outreach versus KPS3's outreach and the numbers that they have driven in troves to our website.
Okay, thank you. And I had a second question, which is, I think, for KPS3. It seems to me, I guess I'm curious what your current approach is for these last 30 days. If you're already doing a different message, because I guess I live up north or don't watch enough TV or something, but I haven't seen anything that's different. Are you doing a, hey, reminder, March 31st? What is the current message? I guess that would help me decide if we need to change it again.
I'll take this one. Katie Coleman for the record. So we switched over to the March 31st call to action in addition to the messaging about financial assistance and the standard messaging that we've put together, but with a heavy hit on the March 31st call to action, and that went into effect as of January 1st. And so all of our outdoor boards, we have a large digital footprint, reflect that March 31st. All of the TV has been switched and reflects that March 31st, in addition to radio. And then, of course, we have our outreach arm, in which all of our boots on the ground, if you will, are reinforcing that March 31st.
Ms. Joyner? I was just going to ask a follow-up. So what is going on now? Because I would have to agree. There was, I'm going to say maybe at the beginning of February and all of January, I saw so much stuff. I saw it on TV. I saw the billboards. I was so excited, obviously disappointed, but excited about that. And I haven't seen, I don't know if the billboards are down or like what. So what's going on now? And what are we paying for now? And I know you don't have, so kind of what's going on now?
Yep.
And have we pulled anything back because of the problems?
So to answer the first part of your question, what's running now? TV is still running. We, as part of getting some of the initial enrollment data from CJ Bowden, we further targeted our efforts on the Young Invincibles, knowing that we really need to maintain that percentage of enrollments. and then also those young families with a focus on the Hispanic segment. And so there's TV, same goes for radio, the same approach. The out of home, the boards moved as part of the strategy to be in the areas where we know our target audiences are, but also based on avails and pricing and all of those things. We are in different places, but still the same saturation, if you will. Digital has ramped down slightly based on our initial plan to ramp up and then ramp down slightly. Based on the last report, digital drove almost 300,000 page loads based on that campaign alone. So we still have digital. We also just recently started in an effort to better target our young invincibles, YouTube placement, that pre-roll video, the videos that roll before for videos on YouTube, and a Pandora campaign, which is also driving quite a bit of traffic. And I have those metrics, and I'm happy to provide those as well. So we have that all running. Our door-to-door campaign goes up until March 31st, and our outreach teams go up until the last hour of the day on March 31st. So everything is status quo as far as the original marketing plan that we presented up until the very last minute. So this, what's being proposed would be in addition to that.
I think I have another question. So if we do nothing, all of this stays in place because it was our initial plan 6 months ago or 9 months ago that the board voted, and we have a budget for it and we're spending it, and everything's status quo basically.
Correct.
Okay. And do we know what we think is working the best? Do we think do we know are the billboards working the best? Are the TV commercials, the radio spots? Do we have a sense of what we think has been the best use of money, I guess, if you want to say that?
So on the digital side, we know that with those audiences in particular, we have the hard metrics coming in from them. If they click, the page loads, we know that they took that step to make that conversion, if you will. As far as our saturation through broadcast media, we're tracking along the impressions. We've actually over-delivered. We scheduled 61 million impressions through our broadcast channels. We've delivered 74 million. So we're continuing to track against everything. As far as what's been working, I mean, we feel strongly that the broadcast and the digital components are where we're really focusing, and that's how our media dollars really have been aligned, as to the broadcast and then the digital component. So if I have to make a recommendation, broadcast and digital are where we really know that we're meeting our audiences.
Mr. Mazzoni?
I don't know, maybe Xerox needs to answer this. I know. Do we know what the rurals versus Clark Washoe numbers look like for hits, digital, whatever?
I wouldn't have that data. That would be a Xerox or Silver State Health Insurance Exchange data component. That's not something that I would have out of the metrics from what I collect through the campaign.
So for the record, Damon Haycock, if I understand correctly, you're wanting to know how many individuals have enrolled or went through the process of trying to go through the application per service area, or basically rurals versus the urban areas. Is that what you're asking, Mr. Mazzoni? Because we do have that.
Yeah, we'll share.
There we go. I guess as I read through this, and I don't disagree with some of the assumptions, but 60% of the population of the state of Nevada is in Clark County. 60% of the population is in Clark County. What, 25% maybe?
We're not hearing him.
So for those who couldn't hear, Mr. Mazzoni asked the question, how is this marketing campaign going to target all the various areas?
So all of our media buying strategy and outreach strategy is aligned to those percentages, essentially 70-30, with the addition and taking into account the rurals. A lot of our rural strategy was targeted through broadcast and also through our print media placement. So all of our efforts, the budget is allocated, aligned to the state split of population. In addition to that, it's also split by Spanish-speaking versus English-speaking as well, to ensure that we're allocating the right amount of money and the right efforts to the North versus the South, in addition to the rurals.
So, do we have a recommendation from KPS3? I mean, I think you guys have been sitting at all the board meetings and have heard everything going on. You guys know the numbers. You're here today. You know, what's the recommendation from the experts? You know, stay the course, add, take away? I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Steph, do you want to chime in at all?
Yes.
I mean, we have our thoughts, but I'd like Steph to chime in as well.
Yes, this is Stephanie Cruz with KPS3. And our recommendation, as Mr. Haycock said, is that with the portal still not being as functional as it might be, we would not want to change our message to encourage people to come back who have been there once. I think that would just frustrate them more to try it again. Our recommendation is to stay the course. We actually did have a planned ramp up in March in terms of media dollars, hoping that there would be an urgency close, and people do wait till the last minute. So we're hoping human behavior holds true. So we have a fairly active, robust program with the March 31st message planned through the end of March 31st from all the mediums. So our recommendation is stay the course. Don't change the message right now. We don't think it would be the best use of money. We think that we should just continue to really actively go after the people who might not be aware it's March 31st and that something is coming. So our recommendation is stay the course, keep the push going, and really be active and ramp up as we had always planned to ramp up.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. If Xerox proves me wrong, and in the next week, 30,000 people sign up, and the week after that, it's 20,000 people, and we kind of go, oh my gosh, you know, is there time to do kind of this final push that you're talking about, or at some point is it too late? So I obviously don't think that's going to happen, but let me just ask the question, since the numbers that Xerox gave us today said they're shooting for 150. So.
Okay, this is Stephanie Cruz again. If that does happen in the next week, we would be thrilled, and we would very actively and quickly try to at least change out a tag or some aspect, as opposed to doing total new production, but we can change out a message and basically scream at every consumer we can hit.
Lynn?
Mr. McCool.
Yes, Tom McCoy for the record, and I hear feedback. Is it working? Okay. I just wanted to make a comment, and I think all of us appreciate the effectiveness of the marketing effort that we've had for the exchange. And there's a basic rule in marketing: if you can't deliver the product, you shouldn't be marketing. I was surprised that we didn't cut back our marketing efforts when we knew we had problems. I thought that was a very efficient way of handling, because we were creating a demand that could not be met. And I think that Stephanie's recommendation is well appropriate based on what we heard during the board meeting and some of the comments from Xerox to this committee. I would hate to say to a family member who's been trying to enroll since December, effectively, I would hate to say to them, oh, it's all fixed. Go back. See those commercials on TV? Come back. I hear Neil Diamond singing Come Back Again. There is a danger here. We've already lost credibility because we couldn't deliver the product. And if we can't deliver the product again, shut down. That's basically what they would do in the commercial world.
Thank you very much. And I don't know why I've been saying Mr. McCool, and I just scolded all my committee members down here for not correcting me, but Mr. McCoy. Ms. Ellis, the last comment, and I think, I guess I would assume that if our To stay the course, we don't need any sort of a motion. That would be my guess. But Ms. Ellis?
TV Ellis for the record. And while I'm hearing what Mr. McCoy is saying on the private world, it does seem reasonable. We also need to understand that their KPS3 campaign does not specifically target people, or has not been targeting, or at least the results of their targeting campaign does not specifically address those individuals that are QHP only. So that is also encouraging the Medicaid population. So I will be a little concerned about even scaling down or shutting down just because the exchange is not working. Also, we need to consider that even if the system doesn't work, Xerox doesn't come through, we can't fix the things, which is a scary situation. I would like to know that we can also rely on paperwork. In the world of IT, when IT is down, we do paper. So the marketing campaign needs to be on course. I will not change what they're doing. I will continue people to encourage them to enroll, to get insured, reduce the number of uninsured Nevadans, whether we do it through a computer or a paper application. At the end of the day, our job is to reduce the number of uninsured, and KPS3's job is to make sure that everybody knows that.
Katie Coleman with KPS3. Tibby, absolutely, and I just wanted to maybe offer a little bit of experience from the field as far as our outreach people in the field. And just so you know, they are obviously encountering similar sentiments about frustrations, etc. Our team does whatever it takes to get that person connected with whatever they need. Whether it's our team has downloaded the paper application in the event this person is at that step. So just as an added comment that is our goal, both in paid media, but also person to person has been really effective in getting people the resources and hugs and all sorts of things that they need to navigate the process as well.
Thank you very much. So it sounds like we are going to take no action on agenda item 7. So with that, we're going back to agenda item 3. And Mr. Haycock.
For the record, Damon Haycock. Agenda item 3 basically discusses the future of how navigators are to be potentially compensated. It's the Navigator program continuation of those grants and compensation structures. We are looking to make to provide a different approach to the process, and then make a recommendation, and then of course it's the committee's recommendation to the board on how we are to proceed. So without wasting a lot of time on the background, we all know that per regulation we need to develop a Navigator program, and that we need to have a Navigator program with representation of at least 2 of the following types of entities, and they're actually listed there on the report there on page 1 of 6. You need to have at least one community and consumer focused nonprofit group, and then at least one of the others, the commercial fishing industry organizations, ranching and farming, chambers of commerce, unions, resource partners of small business, licensed agents and brokers, and other public or private entities that meet the requirements. So that's kind of what we have to do in a nutshell, and that's where we developed the Navigator and Enrollment Assister and Certified Application and Producer Plan that was approved by the board last year. And so at of course, at the February 14, 2013 board meeting, we provided a request for application and went through the process of reviewing internally all the applications for Navigator entities. A committee was selected, and that committee reviewed them and then made recommendations to the board for final award. Those awards did go out. They went out to 8 separate grantees, and at the end of by the end of summer, early part of fall, we were down to 6. One bailed out because they realized that they needed to have more time to pursue this process, and they didn't want the grant to end at the end of this initial open enrollment, which, for those that don't know, all of the Navigator grants end on March 31st of this year with the potential to renew, which is why we're having this report today. And the other organization realized that they could not meet the requirements of the grant and that their mission did not quite align with being a Navigator entity, and it appeared exchange and to that organization that what they could do better aligned with being a certified application counselor. So that's kind of the background. I'm trying to go through this rather quickly, but we performed some navigator analysis, and before I mention some of these numbers, please recognize that these numbers are through January. And we will get our February numbers at the beginning of next month. And the numbers through January, whether you believe that they are good or bad or indifferent, they are 100% predicated on the navigator entity's ability to enroll people through the system. And for the most part, you can't blame some of these numbers if you feel that they are low, because they did not have an operational system, nor did they have an operational dashboard since December of last year. So I want to throw that disclaimer out there before I go over some of these. But as Ms. Ellis has mentioned, and I believe she has more current numbers for her organization than I do, at least through January, there was a couple of standouts. You have the Ramirez Group and you have CARE, both over 2,300 at that time, which I think they're over that even higher. But if you look at what the initial amount of enrollees that we developed these grant agreements on, were approximately 57,000 folks that we were hoping to enroll in a qualified health plan utilizing navigators and enrollment assisters. So through January, they tipped almost 6,000. And again, before we see how much they have failed, because they haven't. So it's more of a systemic problem than a personal issue on behalf of the navigator entity. So I want to make sure that I disclaim this throughout this report. However, initially,
Damon,
what I like to call it.
Your mic is cutting in and out.
So this process, how we awarded the navigator entities was based on a time and effort type of categorical award. And so we developed performance metrics, required reporting, and asked them to come back and tell us how well they did. And then we were going to determine based on their success if what the exchange paid for is what they feel that they got, and they wanted to continue that relationship. So there was some planned enrollment figures. There was about $2.4 million of total grant awards. And there was a planned cost of enrollment. And it reached anywhere from $30 to, looks like, almost $57. And so through January, we'd actually dispersed against those grants approximately $1.2 million. And we've, like I said, we've only hit through January just under 6,000. So at the next Consumer Advisory Committee meeting and at potentially the next board meeting, we'll have more recent numbers for the month of February. So we need to talk a little bit about future navigator program reimbursement. So if you look at it from just a plain black and white numbers perspective, paying at $1.2 million for 6,000 enrollments is about $200 an enrollment. And so what we are proposing in this process here is to follow suit with another type of assistance that's out there in the health industry today, the brokers and agents, who, from what I've been able to gather and from the research and the conversations I've had with broker agencies, they are paid a commission, and that commission is based on initial enrollment and then that continued enrollment throughout the year. And so they get basically paid only if they enroll folks, that there is no payment if they don't enroll somebody in a plan. And I would definitely turn this over to Mr. Mazzoni if he would like to correct me and say that's not how the industry works, and I can adjust my approach. But they are paid only if they produce. And so very similar to any other type of, and please don't take this negatively, a sales environment where you sell something and you get commission for succeeding at that sale. And so what we are proposing in this is that we move away from the time and effort type of awards and we pay for performance, and we move things towards a more performance-based agreement where the entire, and it also links up with our current sustainability plan. And so everything we do is on a per member per month basis. So we receive a per member per month. Xerox, our current vendor, receives a per member per month. And so everything is based solely, I don't want to say solely, but it's tied directly to enrollment. So our revenue is tied to enrollment. Our expenses are tied to enrollment. We do have a certain amount of fixed costs to keep the lights on at the exchange and Nevada Health Link, but the bulk of our success will be based on enrollment. And so we are proposing to tie the Navigators program's compensation directly to what gives us our lifeblood, enrollment. And even though there were targeted amounts of enrollment per Navigator entity, and again, I will disclaim probably for the fifth and more throughout this report, that they did not meet their numbers to date, and they may not meet their numbers by the end of March. We can't quite point all the fingers and say it's their fault that they couldn't meet those because of the system they had to deal with. So recognizing that, I've put together a couple of different enrollment fees based on what our two most successful Navigator entities have achieved, and based on what they initially bid their grant to be. So we didn't want to just come up with a number that came out of thin air that thought, well, we only want to pay Navigators X dollars. We wanted to come up with a number that we felt was in line with the two most successful entities. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the report, CARE actually bid out at close to $30, and the Ramirez Group was close to $40. So I wanted to show in a couple of these tables on page 4 and page 5 what some of those types of processes would look like on a pay-for-performance basis. And not to bore the committee with a whole lot of numbers, what I will say is, our current per member per month fee is right around $5. So let's just use average number or round numbers. So if we pay a $30 fee, it takes 6 months before we break even. And after that, then we actually gain money from everybody that a Navigator or an enrollment assister has enrolled. And I don't want people to misunderstand or run off to the press and say the exchange is trying to make a profit off enrollments, because we're not. But every dollar that we bring in is a dollar we can reduce our costs and reduce the overall cost for Nevadans to receive health insurance. So any way we can drive the costs down to run our operation is a win-win-win for Nevadans. And so with this process, you can look at it at a $40 enrollment. We have different Navigator enrollment figures now, from 5,000 all the way to 100,000 people. How many months would it take to break even on this process based on a per member per month fee anywhere from $5 to $13? And I'm trying not to let I'm trying not to show too much of the next month's types of reports, but we have to develop a per member per month fee at the exchange. It must be adopted by regulation in April for 2015. And so we're using numbers that we feel are going to be in the ballpark, just to give you an idea. So with this in mind, current grant funding exists. We could currently do exactly what we're doing today. We could currently re-award and do a Navigator grants to the 6 entities, or choose the entities that the board will re-award their funding to, and pay them categorically. So we can status quo it. Or we could look to changing this process where you pay for performance. And one of the other unforeseen benefits of this is that we had to restrict the amount of grantees based on funding and based on their applications. But I want you to imagine right now that everybody who could be legally certified as a Navigator entity can participate, and you will never have to turn anyone away. You will never have to tell someone that they cannot assist Nevada HealthLink, that they cannot help enroll someone. And every time they enroll, depending on what fee that you recommend to, if you follow this process and you like it and you recommend it to the board and the board adopts it, then every person that somebody enrolls benefits everyone else that participates on and off the exchange health industry. So if you look at it from a 30,000-foot view, the more people we enroll, the cheaper the costs are, and the better it is for everyone across the state. And there was some potential unhappiness when we did announce our awardees, because some people couldn't play. They couldn't participate. And the reason is because we ran out of money. But if we look at it, how many months to break even aspect, as long as we are breaking even less than 12 months, it doesn't matter how many people want to participate, as long as they become certified by the Nevada Division of Insurance and they meet the requirements of our Navigator program through regulation, which was on the first part of the report. We can have 2 entities minimum. We can have 2,000 entities, and everybody that enrolls somebody wins. And so it's just something to think about. Yes, Mr. Mazzone.
What about the overhead, the expense of doing either the $30 or the $40 program vis-a-vis the $4.95, and or possible, because in 2015 those fees are supposed to move up slightly, aren't they?
So I'm going to try to answer both of those questions for you, and I might take a little while getting there, but I think you'll appreciate it in the end. So first of all, the overhead costs were built into the total grant awards that all grantees received. So their overhead was built into that. And we still utilize their overhead costs to determine a cost per enrollee. So it was folded into a cost per enrollee. So not to continue to pick on Karen, the Ramirez group, but those two entities went $30 and $40 respectively, and I'm rounding. That wasn't after they just created businesses or created models or received equipment. That included everything. And so new participants, hopefully, again, this is up to the committee and it's up to the board, will be priced appropriately to handle this process, to include the almost $500 or $550, depending on who you are and how you went through the process, the certification process per each navigator or enrollment assister. All of that overhead is built into it. And the $4.95 per member per month fee, I would like to push that discussion off to when we actually discuss per member per month fees at the board level, only because I think it has a more appropriate place there, if you're all right with that, Mr. Mazzoni, because that is a totally different conversation that we'll be here till about 7 o'clock tonight talking about. But our per member per month fee that we're going to develop at the exchange is no different than the per member per month fee that we developed before. It's predicated on handling our fixed costs, our overhead, plus any of our variable costs based on enrollment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try to be quick. Just two quick questions. The first is, I'm confused about why you have any analysis about months to break even, because my understanding is that these are different buckets of money. Your per member per month fee is intended for you to become self-sustainable, but these grant funds you're talking about that were optional to be renewed, my understanding is they could only really be used for a navigator program. So why were they mixed? I'm confused about the chart and why it matters.
So that's a great question, Ms. Joyner and Damon Haycock, for the record. So we are looking at, and I would suggest that every committee start looking at things from a 2 or 3-pronged approach. First, what's going to get us through March 31st? Second, what's going to get us through 2014? And third, what's going to get us through the next 2 to 5 to 10 years? So in a nutshell, we do have funding set aside for enrollment assisters. That funding is grant funding that expires at the end of December. We have to pay our navigators, as you mentioned, a different bucket of money from our per member per month fees. So this is what I like to call the worst case scenario. If we have to use our per member per month fees as a basis to make a decision, what will it take before we actually can receive additional funding per enrollee once a navigator has enrolled them, or an enrollment assister? So for those that are being paid through December, through this process, we're getting 100% payback, right? You're making profit day one. And I don't like to use the term profit when it comes to human lives, so please forgive me as a finance person, but that's really what it is. It's net income. And so income comes day one on an enrollment assister. Income comes day one on a certified application counselor who enrolls someone in a qualified health plan. Income breaks even on these charts using strictly navigators. And so hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, it does. And if I could ask a second question. I'm wondering if this is a model that you're taking from anywhere else, and I'll just express my personal concern coming from a nonprofit background. I think these people are a little bit different from brokers in that brokers have other incomes coming in from direct sales of products with insurance companies. And in my nonprofit experience, hiring staff without a guaranteed amount to be able to hire that person, you can't just have people on retainer in the nonprofit world and hope, because it's not within their control whether a person gets enrolled or not. And so my concern is that we'll actually lose navigators because the nonprofits will constantly be adjusting and not know how to hire people. We'll have people not trained. You'll lose very experienced navigators because maybe 8 people who they enrolled last month didn't end up actually getting through the process, didn't qualify for Medicaid, something to that effect. So I'm really concerned about losing navigators. And maybe you have already thought through this or it's working somewhere else.
So Damon Haycock, for the record, I did not actually grab this from anywhere. I took please forgive me, an old college math approach to it. And that first, I did not account for the Medicaid enrollments because from an exchange sustainability paradigm, anyone who enrolls in Medicaid is gaining a benefit that is wonderful for the state of Nevada, but does unfortunately nothing for the exchange. as far as financial sustainability. It does a lot of things for the exchange as far as compassion and fulfilling our mission. Our number one mission is to enroll the uninsured and underinsured in Nevada. We don't distinguish in our mission statement what, if that's Medicaid or qualified health plan. But this is strictly for qualified health plans, not for, because there is no way to recover Medicaid dollars for enrollments. There is no way that I've been told or seen, and maybe you can confirm, that there's funding to pay for Medicaid enrollments at this time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So if it's just the QHPs, I think I still have the concern that the nonprofit folks could spend hour upon hour upon hour with people who maybe don't end up deciding to purchase, decide the subsidy isn't good enough, just choose some other path, and then drop out of the system. And so I still see people spending hours not getting paid, and that's concerning to me. But
And Ms. Joyner, I don't believe I answered your questions completely. So if the chair is all right, I'd like to finish. What do we feel will happen to navigators? I'm going to give you a personal answer. If the system stays the way it is, you're not going to have any navigators anyway. So if navigators can't enroll people, and we don't have enrollment coming in, we don't have funds to pay navigators, whether we decide to pay them on a per member per month, or if we decide to give them a categorical grant. And so this process needs to be predicated on a system that we are confident will eventually become successful. Because if it takes a navigator, and I could probably ask Ms. Ellis right now, how long does it take you to enroll somebody? And she'd give me some astronomical number, which is accurate and unfair. If the system got down to something more in line with, as Mr. Mazzoni said at the beginning, about how he can go on and enroll someone in a co-op plan, then is it more appropriate to look at this model? And all we're suggesting, all staff is suggesting, is that you take a look at this model, because this model will ensure that the exchange will never have to worry about meeting its obligations to pay for this program. This is a 100% paid for program, because if we, and I'm not trying to say that we don't need navigators, because we need them desperately. If we have one navigator who enrolls one person, we can pay that. We can pay the navigator. If we have 1,000 navigators that enroll 1 million people, we can pay those navigators. Currently, the way we're set up right now, we had to do some massive shifting of funds because enrollment numbers didn't come in. And again, it wasn't the navigator's fault. It was the fault of the system. But needless to say, if we didn't shift where we put our buckets in back in January, we may not have been able to successfully return our general fund advance at the end of the fiscal year. And so internally, we're looking at a way to ensure that no matter whatever happens, we can meet our obligations, and we're trying to look at another industry to tie that into.
Lynn Atkins, for the record, I just want 2 clarifications. The current contracts with the navigators and that all of our grantees expires March 31st. Is that right? And I think I have just a general question prior to figuring out the next round of grant applications. Do we need and should we have navigators available mid-open enrollment? Are they still going to be dealing with people who had problems during March who are trying to get in the system? I'm worried about kind of cutting off the navigators at the end of March. We probably should have thought that through beforehand, but now, especially in light of all of the problems and the backlog and everything, does that seem right? And if not, we need a plan for that, and this plan wouldn't work for that because it's hours and hours and hours of fitting. So I just had those 2 comments, and Ms. Ellis and then Mr. Mazzoni.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. TV Ellis for the record. I want to go to page 1, and I can use the help of our AG on the table. Your question about do we need navigators? How do we pay navigators? Do we keep navigators? Do they have a role? Is it sustained? How do we get it? The bottom line, by law, you have to have navigators. Bottom line. So now let's talk about the numbers, because that seems to be, on your math class, I think you forgot to add a little bit of numbers. Yes, it's $30 per enrollment so far as of January, in the case of CARE only. You forgot to tell that we have outreach, educated, and informed 33,000 Nevadans with the grant money. Of those 33,000, we could have enrolled probably 7,000 and meet our quota. We have met 26% of our quota, which is far above and beyond what the exchange in general overall has being able to enroll. And why we did that is because of our reach effort. Yes, our PR campaign is wonderful, but without the outreach effort of the navigator, which role is to educate in addition to enroll, we would have not gotten those individuals to come to our office, go to the 14 libraries, Mesquite, Perron, Overtown, Laughlin, and many of our other partners in town that we have outreach and educated. So we can be short-sighted and punish the navigators for the inability of Xerox to have us an effective system. I have not heard anywhere where we're going to cut Xerox contract. I'm hearing we're going to cut the navigators grant for a $40 enrollment. How about the PMPM? Because you compare us to the brokers. Yes, the brokers get an average of $30 to $40 for an enrollment. Mr. Mazzoni, would you like to enlighten us after you enroll what you get from the insurance company to case manage your client? Because that is also our job. So please take a consideration beyond the numbers of the role and the contribution and the collaboration of all the enrollment assisters, navigators. I don't care what you call them, but I'm going back to the Affordable Care Act where you must have navigators. This committee in 2012 decided to have navigators. The board decided and approved it, in addition to the brokers community, as a cooperative, inclusive approach to reduce the number of uninsured Nevadans. You need to find where the money is to pay these groups so that they can continue to do their job.
Dwight Mazzoni for the record, and by the way, I agree with her. I say that. My question, sir, is there any kind of a mismatch we can put together a combination of a PMPM or whatever it is that Tibby needs to run her operation and give her the kind of some other funding in addition to that so that it's not strictly driven by, I'm strictly driven by a PMPM type thing. And I don't mind answering. I get paid just like they do. I get a PMPM, and what I get the second month, third month, the 10th month, whatever it is. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's not, depends upon the contract. But also, I'm the guy that's holding their hand for those 10 months. I don't think the navigators do that. If they do, they're wonderful people. But, you know, it's not fair that they get one-time payment and they're out and it's out of the picture. So there needs, I agree that there needs to be some balance here. I don't know what service work is done by the navigators, the assisters. What is done by the assisters after the, I'm going to call it the point of sale, Tibby. After the point of sale, but certainly if there's something done, then that's going to fall on Tibby's lap and her staff to help take care of those people. If it's a one-time thing, they're in, they're done, they're out, they're gone, then that's a different story to me. But I think there needs to be some sort of a balance, and I don't want to pick on Xerox any more than we have already today, but, you know, I mean, this is 1.2 million, and we have a contract out there for what, 72 million or something like that. There needs to be some balance put here.
Thanks, Madam Chairman.
Ms. Parati-Boothman.
This is Gina Parati-Boothman for the record. First of all, Ms. Ellis, I appreciate your passion for the navigators and agree with you completely on that. When this committee was elected and convened and we discussed what we needed to do for evolution of this programming for the state, the navigator piece was paramount in the foundation for it. However, at the same time, I can also appreciate the need for sustainability for the exchange. And so I'm going to ask some questions real quickly of Mr. Haycock, if he doesn't mind. And they're going to maybe sound like stupid questions, but I don't care. I'm trying to fit this in my brain. So with regards to the navigators and supporting them, to Mr. Mazzoni's point, is there a way is there a process or is there a financial program with which we can continue to provide for those navigators as we currently are while still looking to the sustainability of the exchange? And is it, I'm very familiar with PM. I'm going to ask those questions.
All right, so for the record, Damon Haycock, I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to address Miss Ellis's statements, and then I'm going to answer Mr. Mazzoni's stuff as well. So I'm going to try to fire this off rather quickly. First, yours is the easiest one because there's always a way. We will determine the sustainability of the exchange. I shouldn't say it that way. The board will determine the sustainability of the exchange based on the per member per month fee. And so, however large or small these obligations get will basically back into the amount of funding that the exchange needs to get per member per month to be sustainable. And that will be based off of the projected enrollment. And if you hit the enrollment or go higher than the enrollment, we have additional reserves. If you don't hit the enrollment, then we're off in a wreck somewhere. And so that's going to be extremely important to determine. But you and any other committee, the board can make determinations on how they want the funding to be allocated, and then we can then back into the number and say, are you okay with this per member per month fee based on your desired expenses? There's always a way to do that. As far as what Ms. Ellis said, she said the success of the outreach campaign, and I couldn't agree more. And we completely agree that your outreach campaign and all the outreach that is being done by the navigators has an extreme benefit. I do want to point to the committee's attention that this cost per enrollment on page 3 included outreach. And so it's not just a wham bam sign you up and it's one time. It included that outreach for that entire 6 or 7 month period. And so if you take outreach out of it, then technically it should cost less. And so we recognized when we developed this process to include to make it more appropriate based on what you do today. And so what Mr. Mazzoni said, and I know he just hopped up here, but what do navigators do after the point of sale? Through training, and I think Ms. Ellis can agree, that through the entire training, we try to explain the roles and responsibilities of navigators and enrollment assisters and certified application counselors. We were also governed by NRS 695J, which was passed in accordance with AB 425 of the Nevada Division of Insurance in this last 77th session. In there it says what navigators, enrollment assisters, and CACs can do and what they can't do. I am not aware, I'm not saying this doesn't exist, but I am not aware of anything that was provided to navigators or enrollment assisters or CACs that expected or required or even requested that a navigator continue after the point of sale. That once someone was enrolled in their actual plan. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a need for that. And so what I think this committee can look at is do you need to review the roles and responsibilities of navigators and determine now with the lessons learned over the first open enrollment, do you want that role to be added to it? And if so, staff will develop the report for you, you can approve it, we can take it to the board, and if the board approves it, we have a different navigator program than exists today. So no matter what I say today, I have no dog in this hunt. All I want to do is ensure that we are successful collectively. And that's not only just for the exchange, but for the navigator entities as well. And so this is just one method to achieve that result that can't fail financially. I'm not saying it can't fail compassionately or it can't fail in other ways, but this method is foolproof financially because for every enrollment you get a profit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to go back quickly to your question about the timeline because my understanding is a little bit different, so I think it would be important to have it clear. It sounds to me like the renewal pool of money that comes up after the March current contracts end would go through December. Is that correct? And so we're really looking from the end of March through next December?
So the initial, Damon Haycock for the record, so the initial amount of funding that was approved in the Navigator, Enrollment Assistor, CAC, and Producer Plan was just around $3 million. I'm going to give you some round figures. And so we have, awarded something like $2.4 million, and we were supposed to have additional funding for the remainder of the year. Now, we have that funding. It's not quite where the bucket it needs to be in, but we can maneuver the funding around. My suggestion in this report is that you look at starting the process that you can continue on through And instead of, and I don't want to add to the pick on Xerox role, but instead of band-aiding a problem and then hoping for something to occur, that this committee takes actual concrete steps to ensure the sustainability after December. And by starting a process like this or continuing categorically, that the decision is made and that people move forward and then we budget accordingly.
Thank you. That was my question, actually. I was trying to figure out why the decision was so urgent, and maybe we could wait until later and give the Navigator programs a little bit more time through this first year, the way they currently are. And so I guess my only other comment might be that I see another option that isn't on here, which is to have a base funding for all the current Navigator programs to continue the outreach, and then have an incentive program. Like every application they get, they could get an extra bonus of some sort. And I think that type of competition could be really positive and get you a portion of the income that you're looking for. I think the current type of outreach where they're out there telling people, look, you can go to the libraries, you can go online, that type of outreach really will end because their only incentive will be to sit next to somebody and fill it out. And I think that I'm afraid that that part will be lost. So maybe there's another option here that's a combination.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. TVL is for the record. I think these numbers are missing an important piece of the information. So let me see if I can put some clarity, maybe for myself, if nothing else. The amount of the contract for 6 months of open enrollment to about $44,800. If we multiply that by the 4 months at the end of January, that comes out to be to about $179,232 disbursed for care in our case. And we had enrolled only, not 9,000, but only 2,300 individuals. That comes of a cost of enrollment of about $77.90, not $30. And yes, that had included the 34,000 people that we had outreach. So I don't think that we have all the information that we need to make this decision right now. We don't know if Xerox is going to fix the problem. We can end up enrolling the other 7,000 that we need to in our case. Nor we know that they're not going to be able to do effective customer service through their call center and do case management. So to answer the question about the role of navigators, enrollment assisters in my agency, we not only enroll, but we also follow up. Maybe as a consequence of the performance of the system, obviously, because people have to come back over and over again. But sometimes during the open enrollment period, people change their mind and they want to change plans. So we have to go into that application and help them change those plans. So it is more than what this report, well, I appreciate it, and thank you for being so focused on our sustainability. We're not looking to save money in the right places right now. And we're not looking to save money in a way that we're using all the information that we need to understand in order to make a decision. So I don't think that, in my case, I'm not ready to make a decision right now on this until we see what's going to happen with the rest of the process and the exchange.
So I hope this mic works. Damon Haycock for the record. I don't disagree with you, and I only caution you to look at the timing, because if your grant ends March 31st and your grant approvals will be predicated off of board approval, backing that up from the time that you're going to gather the information you need, my biggest fear isn't that we pay navigators too much, is that your grants go away in March and we have nothing on the books thereafter.
And so how is the exchange to meet the law of keeping navigators in their program?
That is a wonderful question that I would pose to the Consumer Advisory Committee members as to how they would like to proceed, because staff will draft it any way it needs to be.
This is Lynn. Lynn Etkin. So I think where we are, it's the end of the day too. So here's what I would like to do, because I don't know what the answers are to some of these questions. So I guess we have to, one of our other agenda items is figuring out when we're going to meet next. The board is going to meet weekly until at least the end of March. So anything we do can get in front of the board at least by the end of March. Even if we decided something today, entering into new contracts with the navigators is going to be a feet because everybody's working so hard now. All of staff is working so hard now on getting the system up. And I know Shauna handled most of that with the navigators, and so this is another resource issue. I'm really trying to think how this would play out, even if we voted today to do something. So I'm not sure what to do. So if we're going to meet, I guess if we can have the discussion now, Mr. Deputy Attorney General, of when we're going to meet next, I think that will help us figure out what we want and when we want it. So would we meet in 2 weeks again? Is that soon, or maybe just on that one issue? Does the committee maybe want to meet on just this particular issue since there's some urgency to it? Mr. Mazzone.
Dwight Mazzone, for the record. You sort of said what I was thinking. And I think if whatever Tibby says, the other active organizations, groups that have navigators, facilitators, when do you have to make decisions? Because that should dictate to us a little bit about when we have to be talking and how tight that scheduling needs to be.
If I can interject real quick, and I'm sorry, Ms. Ellis, Damon Haycock for the record, just so you're aware of the timing on the exchange part, I can knock out a subgrant in about 30 minutes. So don't worry about how quickly I can award funding. Worry about how quickly the board will approve me awarding funding.
Right, TB Ellis for the record, and that's where I was going to go. I think that as the board has urgency of meeting every week because of what we're going through and the potential solutions that we will be able to build to recover of what has happened so far, I'm adventured to say that this committee has equal, if not more, responsibility to meet frequently to address some of these issues. We have spoken in length through several items. The navigators is just one more item that actually depends on all of point number 4, 5, 6, and 7 of this agenda. What will be the future role of the navigators and enrollment assisters? Are we going to help Xerox with the backlog? Are we going to do case management in the future? I mean, that's a decision that this subcommittee needs to recommend to the board so that the staff can effectively then put a plan in action. So I would like to ask the chair to ask the rest of the members for a purpose of meeting, if we could meet on a weekly basis and address these things and nip them on the bud so that we can meet before the day before or soon before the board meeting so that they have information in their hands in order to make decisions and the staff.
Mr. Mazzone, very quickly, and then let's
Mr.
wrap this
Deputy
up.
Attorney, whatever you are, can we meet?
Deputy Attorney General.
Deputy AG, can we meet before the board meeting next week, or is there time for us to arrange that under the open meeting law?
That's too tight.
I'm just asking, just a question.
We need 3 days to post. So when could our earliest meeting be? Monday morning? The agenda has to be posted. Yeah.
You're planning on meeting next week. If you could post tomorrow morning, you could have a meeting on Wednesday. If you post Monday morning, you have a meeting on Thursday. Post Tuesday, meeting on Friday. That's basically how it works. Post 9 a.m. 3 days before.
Thank you very much. This is Lynn. Here's my suggestion. My suggestion is we meet next week, next Thursday afternoon. That will give staff an opportunity to look up the issue of, do we have to have navigators during non-open enrollment, and kind of lay out the potential plan for March through December. And I think relook at this, because I would agree that I don't think this is going to work for 2014. Maybe some form of it, but I think we're in such flux with everything that this is such a huge sea change, and I think something like this, or maybe what Ms. Joyner suggested, a combo, I think is a very interesting idea and potential, but in my mind, I'm thinking that would have to be 2015, that I think there is so much time that the navigators and CACs and everybody is taking with potential enrollees that this just seems too much of a right turn in my mind. But I think if we can supplement these ideas, let us stew about this and think about this give us a little time. answer the questions that we do have pending, which is the two main questions that I said, which are, do we have to have them, and or do we need them? I think even if we don't have to have them, we need them. That's just my theory anyway, that we need to figure out the navigators through the rest of 2014, and we come back next week just with that one item is my suggestion, that one agenda item.
In seconds, if I could, real quick, we have to by law have navigators. We have to have 2 navigator entities at all times as long as we exist as an exchange. Well, so here's the, it's not, I'll put it this way. Technically, we need to grant to 2 entities, one of them being that initial nonprofit that I discussed at the beginning. So the discussion today wasn't, do we continue this relationship April 1st? It's how do we engage this or continue this relationship? We're not looking at getting rid of navigators at all. So my sincere apology for rushing through the background due to the timing.
No, you were not rushing through it. I think in my mind, though, because we had this discussion, and Mr. McCoy, I think, remembers he was on the subcommittee with me. It kind of came out of nowhere that, we had asked the navigators to do grant applications for a year, and then it was, well, gosh, open enrollment's going to be done at the end of March. What are they going to do? Had we had the foresight, first of all, that there was going to be plenty for them to do, but that all kind of happened very quickly at the end, and I don't think any of us really questioned that at the time. So I guess what we would like is the grant options. What are the granting options for March through December for the navigators? And maybe it is just 2 entities, and how much funding do we have, and how would all this work? And I would love to see that next week, if we can have a meeting next Thursday. Again, I kind of think that, I guess maybe, so I would like to close this agenda item with no action other than asking staff to prepare an updated report based on the discussions today. Does that sound fair to everybody? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to close agenda item 3, and we're going to go to agenda item 8, which is something we probably don't have time to talk about now.
I bet I can do it quick.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to look at the report. Here it is in a nutshell. Agenda item 8 is how you will add additional members to the advisory committee. 2 members have vacated. 1 resigned late, I think, December of 2012. And another one is going to be moving to the new broker advisory committee. You have a couple of options. There is no established regulation that says how you're supposed to adopt new members. Department of Health and Human Services, back when they started this process before the exchange stood on its own 2 feet, created a process where people get nominated, they submit a form, 2 weeks later that is reviewed, and then the chair and I think the director at the time made the decision on who was on each committee. The recommendation in report number 8 is to follow that idea. It doesn't mean it has to be done that way. You can nominate folks, you can reach out to folks, you can ask them if they want to participate on the committee, and then make a decision as perhaps the chair and vice chair would like to, or whatever process you want. Or we can post an actual nomination form and say we'd like some people to participate, see what you get back, and review them as a committee. You have multiple options.
Well, this is Lynn. Let me just ask this. I guess as I'm sitting here, and Ms. Lewis is not here, she's the vice chair of the committee. Do we think we need more members? Do we think we need a couple set of fresh eyes, or do we think we don't? Or if we do we want to wait until April to do that? I guess that's does anyone have a kind of sense right now about that?
Lynn?
I think the learning curve, for the record, I don't know, but my gut feeling tells me the learning curve will be tremendous for the new members, because they don't know what we did 2 years ago, and a lot of the decisions that we made, why and how. And we are in a time crunch, so maybe we can, consider after April.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes, I just have a question, and I think we just feedback, and I think it was just raised, and that is, does it make sense to add anybody at this point, or would be better off to wait until such time as we have a clear picture of what this committee is going to do in the future? Because as far as I know, we were reactivated, but for how long?
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'm getting a lot of nods down here. I think we're all in agreement that we should leave the committee as is. And once we kind of have a better sense of what's going on this spring, then we'll discuss bringing some fresh set of eyes to the committee. So I'm assuming then we have no action on agenda item 8, or do we need an action item saying we're deferring that?
It's not a requirement. Dennis Belcourt, Deputy Attorney General.
I think we could probably agendaize it at another meeting just on our own. Okay. So with that, item 8 is closed, and so now we're talking about a next meeting. Yes, I know, but I need to do it formally. We need to pick it on agenda item 9. So next Thursday at 2, and the one agenda item. Or I think we have to have the one agenda item, and then I think we should have a update from the board meeting, maybe the board's reaction, because we'll be submitting our list of items to the board, which meeting will be happening at noon. So can our other agenda item be discuss the board results from reviewing our committee meeting, or however we want to say it? Can someone help me? I'm like.
So Damon Haycock, for the record, we can craft the exact message and get that out to the committee for approval for that board. I can do that tomorrow, so that way we can post it. And if you would like, we can add a couple other items if you want to actually get into the nitty-gritty and start discussing the role of navigators. And
TV Ellis, for the record, I hate him too. We need to consider Xerox findings on their ability to search on their backlog by navigators and all that. So we gave them homework. We're going to give some recommendations to the board, and I think we need to be open to having some agenda items to discuss those results in order to make perhaps some more firm recommendations at that time and some decisions.
So Ms. Ellis,
I'm going to close the agenda.
So how about a Xerox update?
Yeah, I want to make sure, and I don't want to speak for Dennis Belcourt, but we have to be very specific about what we're going to agendize, so the public has the 3 days that they can decide if they want to participate, listen in, or whatever. So we can't leave an open-ended agenda item. We have to actually put basically what we're going to talk about, and I think Mr. Belcourt's going to chime in.
Right.
You're correct.
The role of navigators and enrollment assistant, but that subject will need the reports and the feedback from the board and Xerox. So yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm hearing 3 items. The navigator grants, the review of the feedback from the board from our, I'm done today. Thank you. And then the third one, which is, do we want to meet every week through the end of March? Do we want to just say that now and just say every Thursday at 2 through the end of March? And I think so too. Okay. Agenda item 9 is closed. Public comment. None down here.
We have one.
Oh my gosh. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you very much. So the ceiling mic's not working either. Okay, I think we're on
Mr.
ceiling
Penn,
mic.
if you could go grab Mr. McCoy's mic, I think that'll work.
We're
on ceiling mics, Damon.
Okay, so I think we're on ceiling mics. Hopefully you can hear me. Adam Plain, Nevada Division of Insurance. Wanted to bring 2 things real quick. The first, because Director Wilden mentioned it in the board meeting, and I thought that if there's a possibility it could end up in your laps. Mr. Haycock in his report mentioned keeping costs low. One of the decisions that was made early on in the exchange process that maybe this committee ends up revisiting is the premium aggregation role of the exchange. If you look at some of the complaints and some of the issues that the exchange functionality has, a lot of them are dealing with receiving payments and transmitting payments to the insurers, there's the phantom enrollees, there's the orphan enrollees. That's an issue that may end up in this committee's lap. I just mentioned that because, as Mr. Haycock has mentioned, fees, PMPM fees are to be adopted by regulation in April. So if the committee is going to get direction from the board to look at that aspect, you'll probably need to do that soon. Additionally, I believe it was Ms. Ellis had the question earlier about certification of exchange enrollment facilitators at the call center. And I would just state that that question may be answered by NRS 695J.200 and 695J.280.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are going to close the meeting. It's 5:30. Thank you, everyone, for all of your time, and especially for everyone who sat through the board meeting first and this. We thank you, and see you next week.